Good afternoon and good day and good evening to everyone that is out there. Welcome to Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner. This is episode number 237. I am very excited today to have as my very special guest, the actor, the voice, the one and only, Mr. Nick Tate. Nick, welcome.
Hello, can you see me?
We can see you.
Great.
Yeah.
You look good. And I also want to introduce, joining us from Italy is I would say her name is, I'm gonna get it right, Silvana, but it is Silvana Corti. Silvana is one of the organizers for the upcoming Space 1999 convention that's taking place in Modena,
Modena.
Italy.
Great.
You never know that I was half Italian.
Which half?
Exactly.
The bit that doesn't talk.
Anyway.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you so much. And hello, Nick. Great
Hello,
to meet
Silvana.
you. Hello. What a pleasure.
Remember this guy?
Yeah, yes, I do actually.
Yeah, that was me 50 years ago with Barry Morse, who was probably my age then.
Barry Morse, wow. Yeah.
Wow.
He was a great guy.
Yeah. I had the chance to meet Barry in, I think, 2002, if I'm not mistaken. He came to one of our conventions. It was great. Amazing man. Theater man. Amazing.
He was a gentleman's gentleman, never an angry word crossed his lips, always polite, erudite. He knew so much about life and the classics. It was a great honor to work with him, as indeed it was with Martin and Barbara. I was a very lucky young actor to land on my feet in a show like that.
Wonderful, wonderful memories. And before we get started, I just want to make a couple comments. So for the first hour of the program, we are going to be talking about the convention that's going to be taking place in Italy. And Silvana will be speaking with Nick and just letting the audience know about anything that they would like to know, and just also sharing some information about the upcoming convention. And then for the second part, Warren Friedrich is going to be joining us and to talk about London 1999, which is also taking place next month in September. And both conventions are really part of the 50th anniversary of Space 1999, which is so very exciting. And
just 1 week apart.
Yeah, just 1 week apart.
Yeah.
2 weekends. The first weekend is Italy. The second weekend is London.
Yeah, the dates for the Italian convention, the convention taking place in Italy, is September 6th through the 8th. Of course, I guess, Silvana, right, if you want to get there earlier or even stay after that, there's information that can be shared in regards to that.
Yeah, absolutely. The convention starts on the 6th. Nick will be on the 7th and 8th, so on the Saturday and Sunday. But if people want to come earlier, there is a lot to do because Modena is a very, very nice town, and it's a historical place. It's full of nice places where to eat because the cuisine is fantastic. So they have the best cuisine in northern Italy, I can say. So if you are a culinary expert, or if you want to become one, you definitely have to come. Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, I'm going to stay longer, of course. I'm going to come on the 6th. Stay the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, because I want to enjoy Modena.
Yeah.
I love Italy. I've spent a lot of time in Italy. I've been there many times. I've been to Venice several times. I've been to Positano a couple of times. I love the Amalfi coastline. And my newest love is the Cinque Terre, up closer to where we are in Modena. Yes.
Yeah, Cinque Terre are fantastic. Absolutely. Always packed with tourists, but they're so worth visiting. Absolutely.
Rome and Florence and Naples. I've been to them all and enjoyed them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Italy is one of the absolute must. What is it? Bucket list things that people, if they haven't been to Italy, they're gonna, because it's, as I said, it's Italy after all.
Yeah, come and visit us. Yeah, as I was telling Roy, I live in the Lake Como area, which is also great. But actually, Italy is great everywhere. So wherever you go, there is something nice to do, something nice to eat. It's really an experience, a 360 degrees experience. It's crazy. Wherever you go, there is something to do or to
There's so
eat.
much heritage, so much history there, and
Absolutely.
my son actually had the opportunity. My son Ryan, who Nick has met at one of the conventions about back in 2017, he had the opportunity to go to Italy in 2019, and he absolutely loved it. And yeah, I just want to welcome some of the folks that are joining us. Gavin is out there. Hi, Gavin. Gavin is saying Nick was also great in Star Trek DS9. He didn't destroy as many Eagles in that, though. Hi to Gavin. And then he said, mind you, Nick did crash the shuttle in Star Trek The Next Generation, but that's
Yeah.
Christian's joining us from Canada. Welcome, Christian. Great to see you out there and saying hello. Jenny is joining us from Australia.
Wow.
So hi to Australia for Jenny from Australia.
Whereabouts is Jenny in Australia? I want a picture where she is.
Oh, Jenny, where exactly are you? Please let us know.
Wow.
And also, Christian also said hello.
Oh, hi. Hi, Christian.
May is joining us from Canada also. Welcome, May.
Mhm.
Jerry's also out there. Welcome, Jerry, to the show. And
Hi, Jerry.
And
Wow.
Jenny said hello again. And we're waiting on where she's at. Scott is out there too. Welcome, Scott. Darren Peters is out there joining us from Canada. Welcome, Darren. Great to see you out there as well. And Randy Lee is joining us from Wisconsin. Welcome. And also, Suzanne Heimer is out there. Suzanne,
Hi, Suzanne.
She's saying hi.
50 years.
She's so lovely. Hi, Suzanne.
Yeah.
She was one of our
she was one of our guests last year. So lovely. We love you, Suzanne.
Aw.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
My wife Shari is joining. She's joining from Canada, so she's saying hi to Nick and Silvana.
Thank you. Hi.
And Suzanne said, "How lovely to see you."
To find out where Jenny lives in Australia.
She is in Brisbane.
Brisbane.
Yep.
We don't say Brisbane, we say Brisbane.
You know what? I am known for destroying words on this show. Sorry about that. Brisbane.
Brisbane's really nice. It's up in Queensland, the eastern coast, very tropical, magnificently tropical, in fact. And they've got a good, thriving film industry up there now. I went and worked up in the Queensland studios. I shot Dolphin Cove there, and Coolangatta Gold. Many things I've filmed up in Queensland. And as a child, I went and lived with my father, who had run away from home. He was one of those guys. And he went and lived with the Aboriginal people throughout Australia. A very strange man, my father. And seriously, he ran away from life and home. And just before my mother and father divorced. And he wound up on an island outside of Cairns, which is one of the top coastal cities of northern Queensland. And it's right where the Great Barrier Reef is. And there's an island 18 miles off the coast of Cairns called Green Island. It's one of the Coral Islands. And I stayed for 6 weeks there, had my 10th birthday there with my father. And it was one of the defining memories of my life. I learned to scuba dive. Nobody was scuba diving in those days. I was a 10-year-old kid. I met a man called Noel Monkman, who was one of the first people ever to scuba dive anywhere in the world. He was a scientist and a pioneer and a good friend of Jacques Cousteau.
Wow.
They knew each other well. And he taught me how to scuba dive when I was 10. And of course, I did a lot of snorkeling around the islands there too. Very beautiful, warm water, magnificent time of life. Great memories. So I love Queensland and Brisbane.
Fascinating.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Seal's joining us from
What?
Pennsylvania, right up the road from me, because I'm in New Jersey. Hello, Sia. Gianmarco.
Yeah, Gianmarco, yay, from Milan.
I'm sorry. I'm leaving it up to you to name everybody because I'm working off my iPhone and the print is very small.
Don't worry.
We got it covered.
Hello. Yeah, he's coming to Modena. Hi, Gianmarco. Yeah, we wait for you. We'll be there.
Welcome, Gianmarco.
So,
And then,
Nick, as you can see, Nick, the Italian fans are just waiting for you, and so they really can't wait. They're really looking forward to finally meeting you. And this is a special convention because it's the convention of the 50th anniversary. Would you ever have thought that after 50 years we'd be here celebrating?
No, but I did know that when I took on the show, when I wanted to be in the show, I felt it was going to be a smash hit at the time. It's been a kind of like a slow smash, you know. But to think that after 50 years, there are still so many people that love it and have followed it every single week, every single month of their lives. It's always been part of their life. And then there are people that have totally forgotten it, like a story I tell from the last convention I went to, which was at Wonderfest. There were a lot of fans there from Space Night. Well, obviously, that's what it was about. And they were coming up to the table and saying hello to me, and could they shake my hand, and then eventually go into hugs and stuff where people talked about how long they had loved the show and loved me, and people weeping in my arms and making me cry too. You know, it was extraordinary to feel the love. And a man came in who was dressed in a three-piece suit. He looked totally out of place from everybody else that was wearing funny science fiction gear. And he just stood there with his mouth hanging open, looking at all the pictures of the show. And he would have been 60 years of age. And I looked at him and I said, hi. And he went, I can't believe it. I said, you can't believe what? What can't you believe? I thought he was a Space 1999 fan. I said, you're a fan of the show? And he said, I was, but I was a kid. He said, I haven't seen Space 1999 since I was 11 years of age. And he said, it was my favorite show. And I said, so how did you get to this convention? He said, I'm not at the convention. I'm at a meeting upstairs with a lot of business executives. And I saw the pictures in the foyer and I went, I can't believe it. And he said, you were my favorite character. Can I please give you a hug? And I went, yeah. And he fell into my arms. He burst into tears. It was amazing. And I thought to myself, you know, this is a lot of people around the world who loved this show 50 years ago and have perhaps never seen it again. Not like all the fans that watch it time and time again, but it meant so much to him then. And I thought, yeah, there's a lot of people out there like that. And I said to him, it's a two-way street, man. You know, you're making me feel great things about what we did back then. And thank you for that. And all you guys and gals that are watching now and listening to this, I mean that for you too. You know, the fact that you've hung in there and that you've loved our show and you're bothering to come online tonight or today or wherever, night or day, wherever you are, and talk to me and ask me questions. Please do ask questions. It's a privilege. I'm 82 years of age and I feel like I'm right back to when I was 32 when I first heard about Space 1999.
God bless you, Nick. God bless you.
Even young.
Amazing.
I started doing the show.
Yeah.
You know,
I sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I know. I wanted to tell Nick that this is probably the same kind of experience that's waiting for you in Italy, because in Italy we have this very tight-knit group of fans who have been fans forever and have been friends. They have become friends. They have made great friendships, long-lasting friendships, thanks to Space 1999. As a club, the Moonbase 99 Club, we started doing conventions in 1999, actually, and ever since, the same people have shown up, and then we were young, and then we were older. We had young kids, and the kids grew up and became friends with each other. And now it's the second generation, and we're still a tight-knit group, and we still enjoy meeting up every year, having these conventions that are made by the fans for the fans. And this is one of the greatest thing about this, I think. It's something, I can say it's something that comes from the heart. Okay, so our conventions are experiences that are not only, okay, you meet the actor, you say hello, he signs an autograph. No, it's a complete experience. It's something that really comes from the heart, and you'll see it in all the people who come. And this is our experience, and this is what has always been going on with the Space 99 fans, especially in Italy. I've been there for more than 20 years because we've been doing conventions all the time, and these people are so affectionate. They really think that the space changed their lives. Some of them became scientists, for example, because they saw Barry Morse.
Yes.
Okay. Some of them went to work on TV, for example, because of everything that the space represented to them. Some of them worked with space. They became technicians or experts, for example. And it's crazy how important this show has been to most of these people. And
I think it appeals to people who have some kind of technical thing going on in their heads, because here's a funny experience. Throughout life, I've done many other shows, and I've become quite well known as a voiceover actor. And so I go into voiceover studios, and I work with a writer, and I work with a producer, and I work with a technician. The writer and the producer know me as an actor for the things that I've done, but the technician and these people that know me as an actor with the various shows that I've done might not know anything about Space 1999. And they could be younger or older, depends. But nearly always the technician at some point in time will say to me, Nick, were you in a series called Space 1999? I go, yeah. He said, oh my God, I knew it. You were Alan Carter. And look, I promise you, it's nearly always the techies that loved Space 1999. There's many producers that have loved it too, but I can assure you it's always the techies. Just that's that kind of thing in their head, that they love that whole concept of space and the technology of it all. And I was blown away by working on Space 1999, because I was not a sci-fi fan. I'd seen Star Trek, and I thought it was a bit kind of silly. I thought it was adventurous and wonderful, but sometimes some of those weird looking women and people in funny clothes. And then, of course, we got Fred Freiberger came on the second series and did all that, which was a big mistake. We always used to think, that those of us that worked on Space 1999 and loved it, that it was more a science fiction show than a science fiction show.
Agree.
Which really makes sense, though, too, because of the way it was conceived and just everything that it represented in regards to the timing and having the base on the moon, and then the Eagles, which were, almost like shuttles, essentially, to go back and forth to Earth. So it definitely ties in. Really quickly, I just want to say hi to some of the other folks that are joining us. Jeff Rubel is joining us from Utah. God bless you, Nick. Charlene is out there, Nick, from Alabama.
Charlene, hi.
Michelle Diato is out there. She's joining us from Connecticut.
Michelle Diato.
Wow.
Randy's joining us. He said, I've been to Brisbane. I knew it. It is indeed very nice. I think that is a Universal Studios there too, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, yes. Those studios then got bought by Universal. Yes, indeed.
And then he said, I was fortunate enough to scuba dive the Great Barrier Reef too.
Wow.
Jenny commented and said, wow, lots of great adventures up north.
Yep. Yes,
and
Jenny.
Michelle said hi to all of us again too.
Michelle?
And Michelle said, I wish I could go. It's the beginning of the school year for me, or else she would be able to go.
Oh.
Michelle, a pupil or a teacher?
She is a music teacher, Michelle.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shari, my wife, is saying, I got to see the beginning of the show, but the cell power keeps going in and out. Don't go into the mist, Nick.
Really? Oh, goodness me. Is that happening universally or is just...
Oh, no, that's in Canada. Shari's up in Canada right now.
Machucci?
Alessandra Matteucci. Alessandra is the name. Matteucci is the surname.
And the pronunciation.
Hi, Alessandra.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, Alexander. And Michelle is saying, Alan Carter was one heck of a character. He had to make a big choice, go back home to Earth or go to Alpha. And that's what Michelle just commented on.
That's the kind of guy I am.
Yeah.
Scott said the camaraderie around the fans feels a big, happy family. Amazing how positive and supportive of each other they are. Quite remarkable.
Yes. I want to talk about the fandom part of it in a minute, but let's keep saying hi to all these lovely folks.
Suzanne is commenting. She said, Nick, you will love it in Italy. Anton and I had a wonderful time. They were so hospitable.
Oh, thank you.
Suzanne.
And Darren Peters said pilots too, just commenting. Charlene just said, agreed. The cons have always been an experience for all the attendees. Great memories and friends for me.
Yeah. I just gotta make reference to that pilot line.
Oh, sure.
When I fly internationally, sometimes people, I don't know, they look at the log of people that are getting on board. And some of the pilots, when Space 1999 was on, would say to the air stewardesses, is that Nick Tate from Space 1999? If it is, please ask him to come up and visit us. And I would get to go up into the front cockpit with these international airline pilots flying to Australia or flying to New York or wherever. When I was in Australia, I've been shooting a film and I wanted to go up to Thursday Island. And the Ansett Air pilots, that used to be an airline company that was in Australia, no longer. They were flying things called Fokker French ships, which were jet propellers, but they were propellers, jet propellers. And this plane, like all airplanes, are not allowed to come down under, I don't know, 15,000 feet. But when we got up over Cape York, way up the north of Australia, where there's only crocodiles and buffaloes, right up there, just coming into Thursday Island, they brought this plane down. So we were about, I felt like we were like 100 feet off the ground. We were buzzing buffaloes and crocodiles and along the beach, flying along the beach. There was only 4 people on the plane because it's a small. And I was being taken to Thursday Island, and nobody else was going to Thursday Island. I think it was mail. They were delivering the mail, and I had this incredible experience of buzzing crocodiles. I didn't know there were crocodiles, buffalo, and they'd all run away from the water. And then you see in the water things that look like sort of lizards, and obviously they were big crocodiles, But I suppose we might have been 200 feet above them. Now, totally. I can tell the story now because they would have been fired if anybody had known they'd done that, come down that.
Wow.
But yes, pilots they loved Space 1999 and they dipped their lid to Captain Alan Carter. It got me some nice seats on airplanes for quite a while.
That's great.
Those are fun stories for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Robert.
There's
another lovely city. I've worked in Adelaide. I love Adelaide. I love all my cities in Australia.
And Jenny said, yep, I studied and taught science because of Space 1999.
There you go.
Martin's joining us from New York. He's saying hello to everyone.
G'day, Martin.
Ricardo is joining us from Brazil, saying hello. And DeMarco is saying, what is sure for me is the show make me a great fan of sci-fi in general.
Now, how do you pronounce his name? Is that an Italian name?
Yeah, Gianmarco.
Gianmarco.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Randy said, I remember wondering where all the crocs were, only to have a large one surface 10 feet in front of me.
Oh, my God.
Gosh.
And Mark Craig is joining us from the UK. Welcome, Mark. He says, hi, guys. Just joining you. We've just out our Spitfire aircraft away after the weekend at a 1949 event. I'll bet Nick would have loved to go to that as a pilot, too.
Well, I played a pilot in the film The Battle of Britain, and that's a whole other story. I will talk about that at the convention if anybody brings it up, and if I can remember.
Yes, please. Oh, you can bring up whatever you want.
Yeah, my pilot in The Battle of Britain. Pretty small role, but nonetheless, I was in the film. I was very young, and I loved it. It was very exciting. I'll talk about that at a later date.
Yes, please.
Sounds good. We're all caught up on the greetings out there too. So thank you everybody for your comments too and saying hello. We really appreciate it. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Nick too, please feel free to post them in the chat section as well while we're on right now. Yes,
Silvana, I'm getting very excited about your being with you. You're clearly a very smart and intelligent person, and I love your ability in conversational language, because I've been to Italy before for a Space 1999 convention about 20 years ago, and there wasn't anybody there that spoke conversational English. They were all lovely and everybody was very loving, but it was a little difficult to make myself understood sometimes, and we would get some confusion going on because I have no Italian at all. And my Spanish is really bad. My French is probably a little bit better. I did learn French at school, but it's a bit embarrassing. You know, I can only say "Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir?" Yeah, dirty old man.
Roy, you better not translate this.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't take French.
Well, they did a big song about it, you know. Will you see me tonight, my darling?
That's what it means. Yeah.
Yeah. The trouble is when you can say a phrase that sounds really like you speak the language, they then reply to you in very rapid French, and I become completely lost. You know?
Yeah, French is so difficult. I studied German and Spanish instead, so no French for me. Sorry.
Yeah, I should have studied Spanish, but I was a total loss at school anyway. You know, and I want to just help young people or anybody in life who thinks that they failed at school because they were dyslexic. I'm dyslexic, and but I have a very strange form of dyslexia. That means that, you know, you have word blindness. I've never been able to spell in my life, but I have this very strange form of dyslexia where I get word recognition, so I can read passages quite clearly. But then when you ask me later on to write those passages down and spell the words correctly, I can't do it. I spell very poorly. I mean, I've gotten better over the years. Now, of course, we have spell check on our computers, and so, and you also get that predictive text as well. I mean, I've done very well in life, and so, and you know, Winston Churchill was also dyslexic, but he wrote the history of the English-speaking people, and it was all absolutely accurate. People just had to spell check him. That's all. And when I've had people say they'd hire me for the job, but I'm going to have to get somebody to spell check everything I do. That's true.
Christian just commented and said Lady Marmalade.
Lady Marmalade. Yeah, that's the song where the quote has been taken from, the French one.
Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir?
Okay. Anyway, Nick, I can assure you that you have no problem staying in Italy with us, because I'll be assisting you all the time. So no problem. Every step of the way. So, and one of the things of our convention is that we make it a point of being as welcoming as possible. So you'll be the star of the event. So absolutely. You will see how many people will come up to you and say how grateful, how happy they are to finally meet you, etc. And it's really, it all comes from the heart.
And
really.
I want to assure everybody, which Roy will attest to, because as Roy said, and you've been talking about how you become friends, Roy and I are great friends, you know, and Todd Morton and Warren Friedrichsen. We are great friends, and I seriously mean that. Not just that fandom is a separate thing in my life. It's a very big part of my life. I didn't ever think it would be, But, you know, when I first started, people started writing to me and saying they wanted me to have a fan club. And I felt a bit embarrassed because I thought that Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, who were the stars of the show, they really should be doing that, you know. But they know there were fans that wanted to run this for me. So in the end, I said, "Will you just call it the Space 1999 Club, please? Don't call it the Nick Tate Club. I don't think I could handle that kind of fandom." So for the first 6 or 7 years of the fan club, that's what it was called, Space 1999 Fan Club. And I think it said underneath, with Nick Tate, you know, in small writing. But as the years went by, the first lady that I had, she got sick and couldn't do it anymore. So two of the girls that had joined very early on, Eileen Skidmore and Phyllis Proctor, they said, "Can we please run your fan club?" And I said, "Oh, thank you. Yes, please do." And they became my absolute go-to best friends. They were just so wonderful. They know more about me than I know about myself. They know more about me than my wife knows about me, thank God. More about me than my mother and father knew about me. Turns out that they were both English historians themselves. I remember I went to Peterborough with them, and they told me all about the Peterborough Cathedral and their knowledge of the kings and queens of England. They were real historians. And of course, they translated that into understanding a great deal about my life, which, as I said, they knew more about me than I did. And they were my go-to wonderful, wonderful women for the best part of 50 years. They ran what then became the Nick Tate Fan Club. Sadly, both of them got sick almost within a year of each other and passed not long after Peterborough, which was a huge shock to me. Yeah. Because Eileen Skidmore was there and full of life and happy. And
that was heartbreaking. That was
later, even 3 weeks later, she was dead from nowhere. It was like, I couldn't believe it. And dear Phyllis was not a well person. She had a very difficult time physically. She had a poor arm and other medical issues, and trying to look after herself because Eileen used to look after her all the time. So that became very awkward. So then I didn't have anybody to run the fan club. So I thought, well, that's the end of that. And Todd put his hand up and said, "I'll do it for you." And so thank God, God bless his socks, Todd Morton is now running my fan club. Well, we don't do an awful lot. He's doing a lot of other things with all his models and stuff. And in fact, helping to, you've probably talked with Todd. I'm sure you have, because I know that he's helping to put together the Italian convention.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then, of course, Warwick Friedrichsen and Roy are doing the London convention 2 weeks apart, 5th, 6th, 7th of September. Oh, no, it's the 7th and 8th, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'll be flying in on the 6th. And I'll be in Italy. And, you know, I never mind when I'm there. Once I'm there, I am, as far as I'm concerned, 24/7 there for the fans.
Oh.
Often hide in the hotel and say, I don't want to see anybody. Just, you know, I'm only going to come out at 8 o'clock at night and talk to the people for 20 minutes and go back. And then in the morning, I'll sign autographs for an hour. No, I don't do that. You know, I'm there for you. And if people see me in the corridor, walk up and talk to me straight away, please. I'm only too pleased. You know that, Roy, don't you?
Oh my God, yeah. You don't hide out. You basically get out there with the fans. You want to interact with the fans. You give the fans a lot of attention. And you know, and again, it's not even so much like a convention event in that sense. It's almost like a family reunion when you go to the events, because it's a lot of the friends that have not seen themselves maybe within a year or 2 or 3 years, depending upon what the situation is. And it turns into this big family get together where, especially we're all having dinner together and just, you know, passing the food and just having conversations and catching up. So,
and I've had come to the show when they were not married, and then they get married, and then they show me their babies 20 years ago, and then they come this year and there's a 20-year-old handsome man or a 20-year-old beautiful daughter, and again going, mum and dad have been showing me the show, and I'm a fan, and there's a young fans coming into the Space 1999 is having a kind of a renaissance because of that. people are starting to go, wow, that was a great show. I want to see it. I play poker on Friday nights with a group of guys. And in the beginning, one or two of them said, I remember Space 1999. Somebody else said, yeah, that's on show on Friday nights. And if any of them get knocked out of the poker game early on, they say, going home to watch Space 1999. And so they all go home and watch Space 1999. They'll all become fans of the show.
As they should.
I'll be playing golf with people, and they'll say to me, you're very familiar to me. I can't work out why I feel I know you. And I'm just a guy that I'm playing golf with, you know. And Nick Tate. And then all the young guys, of course, they look you up straight away on their iPhones or their Androids. Oh my God, Space 1999. My parents loved that thing, you know.
Yeah, my daughter grew up with Space 1999, actually, and half of her friends are the children of the other space fans who meet up with us every year. So it's absolutely fantastic. It's the second generation and now almost third generation after so many years, and it's just amazing. It's just okay. Gianmarco, yeah.
He said, I have a lot of questions, just like what is your favorite episode and so on. But okay, I will keep them for the convention in Modena. I think I got it
Modena,
right.
Yes.
Stu Wilson is out there and said, really looking forward to seeing you in London, Nick.
Susan Wilson.
Stuart Wilson.
Stuart Wilson, sorry. Yeah, okay.
Nick McCarty's out there. He said, glad to have the same name as you, Nick.
Oh, there's a guy in Australia. He's a voiceover guy called Nick McCarty, I think, or McCarthy. Are you McCarthy or McCarthy?
Yeah, this was Nick McCarty.
No, it was McCarthy. Okay.
Darren Peters is commenting, hi, Nick. For those who can't attend London 1999, will you provide some convention-specific event photos autographed by you for sale through Warren or on Facebook site? I'm sure that'll be covered, Darren.
Yeah, Warren will be doing that. Also, that you can contact Todd via my website, which is nicktate.com, and he runs that.
And Isabel Hoy is out there from London, from England. Hi, Isabel. She's saying Eileen and Phil were so interested in history. They were both in the Nelson Society and involved with running that too.
Yes, indeed. And you know, I didn't know that about them when I first started with them. I had no clue of their not just interest in history, but like really very clever historians. Vast knowledge of all the kings and queens of England. My mother was like that too. My mother could name all the kings and queens of England right back from the beginning of the royalty, and that's quite a feat. I couldn't name it too. Well,
I remember being in Peterborough, and I think it was right after the convention. I think it was the last day after the events, and I was in fact, I was there with Linda, and we were going through everything at that museum. And then that's when we ran into you and Phil and Eileen. And I remember you were sharing some information that they were sharing a bit with you about your heritage that you had just found out. And it's crazy to think that was 10 years ago already, Nick. That was in 2014, which is insane.
No, I was going to ask you that, man. Was it that? So that was dear Eileen passed a couple of weeks after that. They took me to the Peterborough Cathedral, which is this magnificent cathedral, and they said, we know that your mother's name was Neva Glynn. Now there was a bishop who ran Peterborough Cathedral from 1886 until 1912 or something like that, and she said there's a whole area in Peterborough Cathedral devoted to him. And my God, I'm just trying to remember the name. Was it Edmund Carglin? He was the bishop there, and he's my uncle.
Oh.
Wow.
I had no idea or grateful. He was my mother's father's brother.
Wow.
My
Wow.
mother's father was a man,
Hmm.
Adolphus Carglin. Adolphus, who would call themselves Adolphus? Certainly not after the Second World War. Nobody
Nope.
Adolphus. But back then, apparently, it was quite a popular name. And he was born in the army barracks of Belfast to Major John Carglin in 1876, I think was the date. I might be a year out. It really doesn't matter now. And he had two sons. One was Adolphus Carglin, and the other was, was it Edmund or Edward Carglin, who became a bishop and ran Peterborough Cathedral. And I had and he only had one child, apparently. She was a daughter, so she wouldn't have carried the name forward. Because I wanted to say, well, does he have any descendants? Because I have relatives at all on the Carglin side that I know of. My mother died, and my mother was an only child, but she actually wasn't an only child because she later learned in life that her mother had been married before to a man called Moeller, Sacheverell Moeller. And they had John Moeller and Gwen Moeller as their children, and Chev Moeller, Sachev Moeller, as my second, half uncle, my mother's half brother. Does that make him a half uncle? I really don't know.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Never talked about further children. So on the Tate side, I've got quite a few relatives, but on the Carglin side, they've all kind of faded away. I wonder if anybody ever hears this and knows somebody called Carglin. And say, well, I know one that you've got, because I met a woman once called Fernand Glynn, who looked very like my mother, and she said, I'm your mother's niece. But she didn't call herself Carglin, just Glynn.
Isabel just commented really quickly. She said, Edward Carglin, Bishop of Peterborough. We saw the inscription and wondered if there was a link because they were.
Yeah, that's right. It's Edward, was it not?
Wow.
Yes, indeed. There you go. My memory's not so bad. That was him.
Wow.
Yeah, that's talk about the lineage there.
Fantastic. Yeah.
It's
It's so interesting. It's so interesting to know this.
I had they took me into the cathedral and we walked around and we went to this special area, which was not cordoned off, and there are not walls to it. It's like little, I don't know. It was about 15 by 20. It was quite a large area, but the cathedral is huge, and there were all sorts of memorabilia in there.
I think I actually took a couple of pictures of you with Eileen and Phil when you were in there, Nick. I'll have to check, and I can probably.
I would appreciate
seeing
pictures again. That would be very kind of you.
Yeah, I will get those to you. I have to just dig them out, but because I was taking a lot of photos in there, and I remember taking at least a couple, so I will definitely get those to you.
Photographs are strange in life, aren't they? Sometimes we take now because you can just keep pressing way too many, and you're flooded with them, and you think, okay, and then you never look at them again, and you look back on your iPhone. I've got hundreds, if not thousands, of photographs on my iPhone, but the one that I would love to see now is Peterborough Cathedral.
Yeah,
and I don't have one picture of it.
I definitely took some photos, and I know what you're talking about. I think I have, and I'm not even exaggerating. This is scary. I have 100,000 photos on my phone, and I'm not exaggerating.
Back them up.
Yeah, I know, and they go up to the cloud. Dave Thomas is saying hi, Nick. He's from England, in the UK, from London.
Hey, Dave.
Ruth Rickersfield is saying hello to everyone. Hello, Ruth, and hello, Dave.
Hello. Will we be seeing these people in England, do you think? I hope so.
Dave will be in London, in England, and I'm not sure about Ruth. Ruth, please let us know if you're going to be in Italy or if you're going to be in London.
Can you go back here? Read this one. Jeff.
Rubel. I doubt Nick remembers this, but we met at the 1978 convention. I walked up to him carrying a bunch of posters, photos, etc. He looked at me and said, "Wow, this kid's come laden with stuff. It was a great time."
What can I say? Yeah, I remember you well. I kind of do, but brown or blue eyes, I can't quite.
So close. John Harley is saying hello. I'm not sure where John's at, but hello, John. Please comment if you're going to be attending one of the events. Isabel commented and said, "That's the cathedral where Catherine of Aragon, Henry VIII's first wife, is buried."
Yeah, it's a very historic cathedral.
And Christian just commented, "Hi, John. I was about to ask Nick about the Champions episode."
Yeah, I don't remember much about the Champions episode. It was very early on in my career. I think my credit was even Nicholas Tate, because I was always Nick, but my agent at one point in time said, "I don't know whether you want the Nicholas thing. Nick Tate sounds so concise." And I said, "Yeah, okay, so let's do that now." And I changed. That was very early on in England when I was working there, probably around about 1965, 66, when I first arrived. I think Champions was a very early episode for me.
Was Stuart Damon in?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
You're dead right.
Yeah. Wow.
He was a nice guy.
He did 2 episodes of Space too.
I think we reunited then.
Yeah.
We talked about that.
Yes. He was in the second season, the double episode.
He was in the first season as a pilot in the episode with Richard Johnson. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Funny in life, especially being an actor. You work with somebody on a show, you're playing a small role. You do it, you become fleeting friends and say goodbye. Several years later, they've gone on to do something magnificent and become very famous. Or equally with myself, getting into a show like Space 1999, where I suddenly become, a working actor that's quite recognizable to a lot of people. Who I remember when I met Bob Hoskins on Hook. Bob Hoskins came up to me and he said, "Yeah, I know you. You was in that Space 1999, weren't you?" I said, Yeah, I was, man. He said, Michael Barnes that was casting that. I hate that little. He said he wouldn't bring me in the show. He said they didn't have Cockneys up in space. I was feeling bad for him. Here he was, a superstar, Bob Hoskins, talking to me about how he couldn't get a job that I was in at the time, and that I had one of the leads of. He said he was very jealous of me back then. Didn't know how he could break in because he really wanted to be in Space 1999. And
wow.
You've got a way more successful career doing exactly what you do. And I love what you do. He was a very funny, naughty man. I was only going to do one scene in Hook, but Steven Spielberg decided, because my character was a very funny character, naughty pirate, sort of like an old gay pirate that kept on hitting on Robin Williams' character, which they in fact cut out of the film because, for discretion being the better part of valor, they decided it perhaps was not the right kind of element to have in the film. But nonetheless, when it was originally conceived, he was an old gay pirate that was hitting on Robin's character when he first comes back to Never Never Land, and he's trying to find his children, and so Tinkerbell tells him to go to this particular pub because he's going to meet pirates there. But he met the wrong kind of pirate when he meets my pirate, And so Stephen said to the casting director, to the crew, that he wanted me to mingle with the rest of the pirates so that I got used to what they were doing. They'd been shooting for about 6 weeks when I came into the show. I was only going to do one scene, and that was the scene in the pub. So I arrived to do it, and they said, "We're not going to do that today, Nick. We'll get round to that either tomorrow or the next. We've booked you for the week, so just mingle with all the pirates." And they loved what I was doing with the thing. So he said, a lot of the pirates are stuntmen or American actors. And so they don't understand how to do the Cockney accent. So if you could help them with that.
Nope.
Oops.
We lost Nick. Nick?
Oops.
Nick, you there? I wonder if his
we lost him.
I'm sure he'll be back shortly.
Yeah, definitely.
Savannah, did you see the movie Hook?
Oh yes, I did. It was my favorite, one of my favorites when I was a kid.
Yeah, that I think that if I remember correctly.
We used to have the VHS. I don't have it anymore, sadly. I would have loved to have Nick sign it. It's such a pity.
Yeah, I think it came out in 92 or so. If I'm
Yeah,
thinking back.
Probably. Yeah.
And you're saying you were a kid then. Now I really feel
not really a kid. Let's say I was an adolescent. Come on.
I'm gonna see what happens.
We've lost Nick.
Yeah, I think he'll be back shortly, but I'm gonna just read the comments that came through while we're waiting.
Sure.
Just want to say hi to Dennis Chevalier. He's joining us from Canada. Welcome, Dennis. Wow. And Ruth said that she will be in London. So glad to hear that, Ruth.
Yeah.
And yes, John, Stuart Damon was Parks in Matter of Life and Death. Randy's saying Nick crashed it. We need a rescue eagle. Jeff Rubel saying maybe Into the Black Sun. So
definitely crashed his eagle.
So you know what? While we're waiting for Nick, tell you what, I'm going to share some of the other details about the convention that are.
Yes, please. Yes, please. In case someone is interested, if you're having a vacation in Italy, just come over.
So now the other guest that will be there, just to let the folks know, is going to be. I'll let you pronounce the names.
Yeah, Andrea Balestri. Andrea Balestri is an Italian actor who was in Pinocchio. Probably many of you are aware of what it is. It's a very famous. It was a very famous book by Carlo Collodi, the Italian author, which was then used by Disney for its movie Pinocchio. Pinocchio is in English, but yeah, it was the. He was the protagonist of this movie, and then instead German instead is a model maker. Okay, so he will talk about his job. He's a 3D model maker, quite famous, very important, and he's a great sci-fi guy. So we really look forward to meeting him, and it's going to be very interesting. And instead, Marcello Rossi is a journalist and one of our cooperators. He has been working with us forever. And he is one of the guys who made it possible for Space 1999 to be brought back by RAI, the Italian state television. And so it's so important to have them all, and it's so nice for us to have them as guests. Okay, and Nick, of course, will be our guest of honor, and he will have two separate panels, one on the Saturday afternoon and one on the Sunday. So if there are people who are just coming over for one day, they can still catch him either on the Saturday or on the Sunday. So no worries there.
Very cool. So everything is covered in regards to that.
Absolutely. Could you please share the name of the hotel? I think
absolutely.
You had.
There we go.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, SpaceCon 6. Our convention will be held at RMH Modena Desert in Baggiovara di Modena. Modena, of course, is the name of the place. Baggiovara is just the part of the city. It's a 4-star hotel, 4-star superior. It's a very, very nice hotel, a great venue that we've been using for many years. And we've always had the very successful conventions there. Modena, as I told you, is a lovely town. It's full of history. It it's very convenient to have our conventions in Modena because it's very close to Bologna. So there's an airport in Bologna, an international airport, and it can also be reached very easily from all over Italy and also from abroad. So it's quite convenient. And then Jules, who is our president of our club. Hello, Jules. I hope you are seeing us. Unfortunately, he couldn't come over, so that's why I'm representing him and the club tonight. But he's the guy who made everything happen, who makes everything happen, the president of our club. And he lives in Modena, and also some of our closest friends and the people who are closest to the club live there. So it's very convenient for us to have our conventions there. And also, Modena is a very nice town with an important historical past. It dates back before ancient Roman times, so it's amazing. I mean, the cathedral is fantastic. The center, it's a really lovely place. And of course, it's famous for many, many things. Like, for example, the luxury car brands like Ferrari, Lamborghini, Maserati. Okay, and it's also famous for balsamic vinegar. And for Luciano Pavarotti, the famous opera singer and tenor. So Modena is one of the to-go places, to-go destinations in Italy. And so if someone is coming, if someone is in Italy during their vacation, I really, really recommend coming to Modena. Okay, and the cuisine is fantastic too. As I was telling you before, there are lots of wonderful dishes. Like tortellini, for example, which are very famous everywhere. And of course, fresh pasta dishes and wonderful cheeses, cured meats, cold cuts. There is something for everyone. So it's both a culinary and a cultural experience if you come over to Modena. And then, of course, it's a sci-fi experience if you're coming to the convention. So I hope Nick hasn't crushed his eagle, but I can't see him. One thing I would like to point out about our conventions is that every year we raise funds for charity associations. And this is a very, very important point for us. We raise funds. We have a charity auction every year. And every year we have a different charity association that we support. Some of them are local associations. Some of them are national or international ones. And it's so important for us. It's one of the pivot points, one of the most important points of what we do. And I would like to list some of the most important that we have supported in order to make you understand how important it is for us. For example, we supported UNICEF, Amnesty International, Doctors Without Borders, AMREF, Emergency, the Dravet family group, which is for the families of children with a rare disease. And then the Italian Leukemia Association, the Italian Multiple Sclerosis Association, the ALS Association, the ANT group, which supports families of people with debilitating tumors, the English Parkinson Disease Association. So there are so many things that we support. Every year we choose a different one, and it's really paramount for us to give a hand. And this year, the support will give to an association which is called Associazione Famiglia Charitas, which supports the families of seriously disabled children. And so I'm telling everyone who is listening to this that if you can donate, please do it. If you are supporting one of these associations, even from your country, please do it. It's so important. Thank you so much for this, Roy, because I think it was one of the things that we really wanted to stress.
No, absolutely, Silvana. And I appreciate you sharing all that information and letting everybody know about it, and also giving the intel about what's going on with the event and how it, really pertains and all the history. And it's going to be a really fun time. And like I was saying to you, I wish I could come to Italy. I mean, it's definitely on my bucket list for, in the future. So I think what you've been doing is really wonderful. I think it's amazing, that this has been going on as long as it has, which is great. I look back on the conventions that have been taking place, in the US, And then also now, they've been happening, of course, internationally as well too. And it's pretty amazing how so many friendships have been forged, and over the period of time, how things have really worked out, and really the stayed as strong as they have. So it is really a very special time in regards to everything. So in regards to everything you're doing, and can you please say the president? Is it
Jules, Giuliano is the name, but Jules is the nickname.
Jules.
Everyone knows him as Jules. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And hi, Jules, if you're following us.
Yeah. Hi, Jules. And we've actually gone back and forth on email over the years too.
Sure.
Really, he's been always very.
Have you got maybe some pictures to show?
Yeah.
We sent you some of our cross conventions, because we started doing conventions in 1999, and the first guests were Barry Morse and George Sewell from UFO. Barry Morse, as I said, it was a fantastic actor, and I was in awe of him. I could have listened to him for hours, honestly. It was really difficult to translate for him, because he went on and on and on, and I was just mesmerized, and I didn't want to stop him because everything he said was so nice and so beautiful, and so it was not easy to translate. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, and then we had Xenia Merton. Xenia, when the short episode came out, the one that she did with the that's Nick. That's Nick back.
Hey,
I'm
Nick.
back again.
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Hello,
okay?
Nick.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah. We thought you'd crush your eagle.
Well, my son is coming over to see me. He somehow or other, his phone rang on my phone. He thought I'd finished. So I think
that's.
What time is it now?
Yeah, right now it's 3:13. So I'm going to bring on Warren, and Warren is out there too. So, Silvana, I want to say thank you so much. I'm going to just bring on Warren so you can say hi to him, and then
please.
We went a little over time, not too much, but it has been such a pleasure having you on the show. It's a pleasure that I finally got to meet you. I mean, we conversed a while ago, so and I'm very excited for Nick.
Silvana, goodbye, darling. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the 6th.
Yay! See you soon, Nick. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye, Silvana.
Bye.
There's Warren.
I want to introduce to everybody the organizer of the London 1999 event, and this is Mr. Warren Friedrich. Warren has been leading up the London convention. So, Warren, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time today, Silvana. Lovely to see you.
Hi, Warren. That's great to see you too.
Thank you for everything, and even helping out with supplying some wonderful Italian guests to come to London. It's going to be very exciting.
Yay! I'm so excited for everyone.
We want to cross-pollinate this thing, and great, because we all love Space 1999.
Absolutely. Yay.
100%.
Okay.
And hello, Nick, of course, and Roy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Okay, so thank you for everything. I'm off then. I'll leave you to it. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much, Roy. Bye, Warren. Bye, Nick. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
She's a sweetheart.
Yeah, very lovely. Oh, thank you, Roy, for helping with that.
Absolutely. You're welcome. I'm
very, very pleased with her articulate quality, her friendliness, everything about her. Just great.
Yeah. No, she's definitely a very warm individual, and I think you're gonna have a blast. So you got a lot of good stuff coming up. 2 weeks that'll be taking place. Space 1999 orientated, Space 1999 convention in Italy, and then the Space 1999 convention that's taking place in London. And which brings us to where we're at right now. So Warren, let's you and Nick converse and here's some good stuff. What's going on and what some of the stuff that's planned.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks again for having me today, fellas, and it's wonderful to see you both as always. Nick, I was listening to the first half of the show with Silvana, and um, uh, you'd mentioned a couple things right off the bat that I'd just like to touch on before we dive right in. But
Okay.
listen, honestly, and Roy, you're right there with me. But I mean, I first met you in Burbank in 2012, and we had dinner one evening during that event. And it changed my life. You were so warm and welcoming and gracious with your time and stories, and it really I couldn't believe it. I still can't. And to this day, I mean, to call you a friend, and you had referenced earlier Todd and Roy, we go very far back and deep. With this isn't just a business type of proposition. This is very, very meaningful to all of us, and we truly thank you.
You say it was only 2012. I have a feeling I've known you for 30 years.
Well, it may seem like it.
Nick,
that's only 12 years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I think Roy goes back a little further.
I first met you, Nick, in believe it or not, it was at the 99 convention, and was in LA. That was the first. That was actually my first one.
25 years ago, buddy.
Yeah. Where is the time gone? My God.
I go back another 25 years before that.
Yeah, I mean, I could actually tell stories. I'll do that at another time because we're here to stay focused on this. But I remember hearing about that 1978 convention that that was being referenced earlier, and
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
By Jeff Rubel. No, it was actually, that one was in Ohio. I think it was in Ohio.
Ohio, yeah.
In Columbus, Ohio. And I remember seeing that in the Starlog magazine and so wanting to go to that. And when I found out about it, I was like, what? A Space 1999 convention? And then when I saw that it was in Columbus, Ohio, I was like, really? It's not New York? It's not in England? It's not in California, but in Ohio? And
well, the first one I ever went to, I was doing, science fiction convention. I'm absolutely, it wasn't called a Space 1999 convention because it was mostly Star Trek people, the first one I ever went to.
Right.
But there was a branch of the Star Trek people who were very, very excited about the potential of there being a new science fiction show that they could relate to, because Star Trek had been over for 7 years. And some Star Trek fans were very disappointed in Space 1999 because it wasn't Star Trek.
Right.
And others were like, hey, who gives a shit? I mean, I'm sorry, but truly, we love this show. It's science fiction and it's got new concepts, and thank God for it, and in particular, because they'd invited me, they loved me, and I was gobsmacked, and ITC had to sanction it because, for a start, it seemed like a crossover, and why would I be doing this? And then discretion became the better part of valor there, and they realized it was probably a very good idea to have somebody that could bring a lot of, if not millions of Star Trek fans over. So they said, yes, you have our blessing. And they brought me first to New York. ITC paid for my trip to New York and said, we want to interview you and the extraordinary amount of fan mail that you've been getting. ITC was recording the fact that they said Alan Carter gets 5,000 fan letters a week. I'd seen a hell of a lot of them. They were coming in big canvas bags into the mailing department out at Pinewood Studios. But they weren't all coming directly to me. I think there was some kind of rule where they had to go through production office first. And so a lot of them were sorted before I got to them. But I did get to see quite a few. And if ITC had the numbers of 5,000, then fine. But they were very impressed with that. And Abe Mandel said to me, this could be, and he was head of ITC at that time. He said, you don't realize how big this is, Nick, because nobody's ever been able to make a breakthrough into Star Trek before. And this is happening, and you're kind of heading it up. So we're paying attention, and we think it's a really good thing. And they did breakfasts with me. I've They took me to the Drake Hotel in New York, and every morning at 8 o'clock for the first 3 days I was there, they would have 5 or 6 different reporters come and sit around the breakfast table with me. Breakfast with Nick Tate, Alan Carter. And I was being treated like Paul McCartney, you know. I had true fans around me, and they were the people that wanted to write the stories. And it was, I mean, I'd been popular in television shows in Australia, and I'd had opening nights in theatre and so forth in Sydney and in London, where the audience had stamped and applauded for 10, 12. In fact, a musical I did called Canterbury Tales regularly got 10 to 12 curtain calls every night. And so I've understood what it was like to have people cheering and stamping and saying, "We love you," you know, and in ensemble, as an ensemble. But to individually be treated like this sort of very special person, we didn't get it in Australia. We didn't get that elsewhere in my life. And here it was happening in New York. And I was a bit gobsmacked by it all, and tried to keep my cool. I hope that I didn't appear too disdainful or too distant. I just didn't want to gush. You know, it was an extraordinary feeling. And we could have capitalized on it more, I now see. I was rather hesitant and reticent to do it. There was not a casting, but an agent person that met with me, several actually. And they said, "So you're going to stay in New York, Nick?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm going back to England." "Well, why aren't you going to stay in New York? Your show's on at 8 o'clock on Saturday nights, for God's sake. I mean, everybody loves this show." I said, "Well, yeah, I know some people do." So no. We wouldn't be here in front of you right now if they weren't. I want you to stay here, and I want you to sign with me. I want to be your agent. And he said, "I will get you. What do you make?" And I told him what I was making. He said, "My God, that's chicken feed." Well, that's what they paid us in England, you know. And he said, "I will get you 6 figures within 4 months. You'll be making 6 figures." And I thought the guy was blowing smoke, I have to tell you. And I go, "Look, I'm going back to England to get married." "What do you mean you're going back to England to get married?" I said, my fiance is waiting for me. I'm going back to get married, and we're buying a house. We're living in London. "No, Nick, you've got to come to America. It's happening. Don't you understand what is going on here? The importance of this, you know, this is going to be very big, and most people never get this opportunity. You have it right now. Let me handle it for you, please." And I thought, no, they're going to love me everywhere. You know, I'll go back to England. I'll become big in England, and then they'll ask me again, you know. It was a mistake. I should have gone to America then, when it's like riding a wave, you know, and I'm a surfer, so I know what that experience. Trying to get on a wave sometimes can be easy, and sometimes it's very difficult. And when you get a set of waves coming through, if you get a great wave and you ride it, you've got to ride it right to the beach. You know, you don't get off, or you might miss the next set. And that's what it was like with the popularity of early popularity of Space 1999, and how I could have come and lived and worked in America as a result of that. But I didn't. I went back to England for the next 4 years and did not come near America.
So it's really like what you're saying is in regards to timing and riding the wave and everything. I wanted to share an image because you were talking about one of the first conventions you went to, and it was a Star Trek convention. And I'm putting this up on the screen, and this is 2 shots that, I mean, these are on the internet, but I kind of copied and pasted really quickly. But this is when you were actually at I think this was in August of 1976 when you were in New York doing this. And this is right around the time the second season of Space 1999 was being filmed. And this is at the event that was taking place.
Yeah, I had to get a few days off to fly over and do it. And yes, it caused quite a stir. As I say, Abe Mandel came to meet me personally, and he actually told me, he said, I really was not impressed with the Australian character in the beginning. He said, because I couldn't understand your Australian accent. And yet he said, "Why don't you talk like you talk here?" I said, "Abe, I don't know what you're saying. You know, my character's Australian, and the writers have accepted that. and they were told to write for me as an Australian with Australian expressions. He said, but you've got a very mid-Atlantic accent. And I said, well, yeah, I'm an actor. And he said, well, I think you should break down the Australian accent a bit, because we Americans don't understand you. But he said, I understand everything you're saying. So talk like that in the show. So my character's a little bit schizophrenic because I was more Australian in the beginning because of that.
I see. Yeah, because it's thicker in the earlier episodes in the first season.
And Freddie Freiberger wanted to personify it, actually, when he came into the second series as producer. He started writing really silly little ditties and things where he wanted me to say things like calling people wombats. And I just had all sorts of really weird ideas, which were very Australian. I said, you better talk to Abe Mandel because he doesn't want that.
Right. Andrew Ray's saying hello, and he's actually from Australia, and he's saying hello to all of us. And he said,
hey, Andrew.
Space from day one. Andrew, where in Australia are you? Because Nick was asking that of Jenny before, so just want to clarify that. What part? So just put that up there. John Harley just said that was an incredible story that you were just telling. And also Isabel was commenting before saying that's scary 25 years ago, listening to Johnny Byrne talking about Space 1999 at the convention in LA. Johnny Byrne.
I love Johnny Byrne. He was one of my favorite people. So knowledgeable, so clever, so creative. He was the one that asked me to come and stay in his house out in the Cotswolds. He said, and he took a lease on this magnificent old mansion that had about 15 bedrooms in it, and it had about 5 acres of property around it. It's like living in the middle of an old golf course. And He had what's called a maze. I think you all know what a maze is. He had a real live growing maze in the garden, which the gardener said it was well over 100 years old. And you could get inside this thing and you couldn't find your way out. It was amazing. Amazing. Maze. I wonder if that's the same word. Amazing, Anyway, he told me at the time that we'd only just started the first series of Space 1999 up to about episode 6. And he said, we want to write more for your character, Alan Carter. And he said, Chris Penfold and I have come up with a great idea for a show about this monster. It was called Dragon's Domain. And they wrote it for me. And they showed me the early draft of it. And I was blown away. I was so excited. He said, Nick, we're really interested in developing Alan Carter very much. I think you know the story. When it came down, they decided not to give me that role. They brought in an Italian actor to play that character because the monster was going to kill him, and then Martin would vanquish the animal, the monster. Dragon's Domain was a wonderful episode, and it was a precursor to the movie The Alien, and written before The Alien ever was written.
Yeah.
And people later on, when they see the show, said, "Oh, well, you're just copying The Alien." No. This story was first.
It was.
And a lot of people think Dragon's Domain is their favorite episode in terms of writing. There you go. So you're waving your hand, Warren. But you can imagine how, therefore, it pissed me off when I wasn't allowed to play the role.
Yeah.
Because I read it too, and I thought, this is a great episode. But it has to be said, Martin didn't want me to do it.
It's definitely a fan favorite among, from the fans. I mean, that always was one of my top 5 of the
It's
series.
A great story, a fantastic concept and a terrifying. I mean, they really did it very well with that spitting out the husks of the burnt bodies. Oh God, it's horrible.
Andrew said that he is from Queensland. So just so you know.
Another one from Queensland, yeah, but whereabouts in Queensland? Because Queensland goes right up to, as I told you, where all the crocodiles and buffalo are, all the way down to Brisbane and then crossing the border, because Brisbane's fairly close to the border with New South Wales and Coolangatta. If he's from Brisbane, that's a big cosmopolitan city. The further you go up, Rockhampton, Townsville, Cairns, they're all cities that go up on the eastern seaboard, and some of them go right into the Great Barrier Reef, which is, some of you might know, is well over 1,000 miles long. The Great Barrier Reef is the largest living single organism on the planet of our world. The Amazon forest comes second to that.
Wow.
Because the Great Barrier Reef is so long in terms of miles. And they're all hundreds and thousands, millions of different little corals, but it's one huge living organism that relies on itself and breeds within itself. It's one entity of the greatest, wonderful barrier reef on the planet. And sadly, it's very sick because of climate change. The water is getting too warm for the coral, and the coral is dying. And instead of all those brilliant colors you see, the blues and greens and reds and pinks, magnificent colors, it's going white because it's dead. There's still plenty of it alive, thank God, and hopefully scientists and so forth will find ways of helping to cool the planet. If Mr. Trump doesn't destroy us all with his desire for fossil fuels. Sorry, I'm being political. Let's not talk about Mr. Trump.
Just to cut in real quick, Andrew said close to Brisbane in the Lockyer Valley.
You're not Lockyer Valley. Okay, right, gotcha. Beautiful.
That's where
wonderful
he is
part of the world. I think it's cattle country.
Gotcha. So Warren, just to interject real quick. So in regards to the event, the dates and the hotel, and where would you like to start off?
Sure. Well, and really quickly, you'd mentioned Jenny from Australia earlier, and Jenny will be coming to London. She'll be taking part. I'm not sure exactly where she's from.
Oh, good. She's a scientist.
I think so, and she's very athletic. She has something to do with
she does fencing.
Fencing. Yeah.
Fencer.
Yeah. So she's
quite good too. She does.
Remarkable.
She's always doing in competitions and everything.
I bet she would love the fencing that we've just had in the Olympic Games.
Absolutely.
Well, I look forward to meeting her. Yes.
Yeah.
I look forward to all the people that are saying hi, and the ones that can't come. I wish you could. This is a great thrill. You have to understand, as I've said, as fans hold on to me and say, "You don't know what this means to me." They don't know what it means to me, because, as I said in my little promo that I've done for you, when you work as an actor in the theater, you can tell if an audience likes you or is being affected by you. They either gasp or scream or cry or laugh, depending on whether you're playing a villain or you're playing a comic role. But when you do film and television, the only feedback you get is from the director. Or sometimes you might have an empathetic focus puller who will come up and say, "Really like that moment, Nick." I used to have a focus puller on Space 1999 who became one of my best friends. And he said to me, "Nick, anytime because Martin could always put his hand up and say, 'I want to do that scene again.' I never felt I could do that because I wasn't the star of the show. And the only way I could get them to do another scene was to actually forget my lines and say, 'I don't know what I'm saying next.' Well, I wouldn't do that because I knew my lines, But, and he said to me, sometimes a director like Charlie Crichton say, 'Cut, let's move on. Come on, perfect, let's go.' And Martin would say, 'Oh, I'd like to do it again.' 'Why? It was perfect.' He said, 'No,' Martin said, 'I want to do it again.' I couldn't do that. None of the also ran actors in the show could say, 'I want to do it again.' Martin could, so could Barbara. And Martin often did. But I didn't. And one time I remember there was a scene that I'd done, and it's gone pretty well. And Charlie said, "Go, let's move on." And I said, "Charlie, can we do it again?" And he said, No, of course not. That'd be ridiculous." I said, "Oh, okay." So I was wasting my time even asking. The focus puller came home and he said, "Nick, anytime you really feel that you have to do it again, just give me a nod." He said, "I'll say there's a hair in the gate." You remember that expression, a hair in the gate? Now, because we filmed everything in Space 1990 was shot on 75mm film. It wasn't even 35. It was 74 or 45. What it was? Hey, what do I know? But a hair in the gate is when a piece of that celluloid breaks off and actually gets into the lens. And it certainly happened a lot in the early days of filming. It even happened a lot in the old days of filming. So once everything was done on video, and now even just digitally, you never get a hair in the gate. But if a focus puller called out hair in the gate, it meant you had to shoot the scene again, because they can't tell when the hair started going into the gate. You only tell it after you develop the frame or all that you might shoot a scene for 3 minutes. And if the hair in the gate started in the beginning, it's flopping around all the way through the time you're talking, doing this kind of thing. And some of the old films, they couldn't do it any other way. They had to show that. You saw the hair in the gate.
Right. You wouldn't know until you watched it in dailies the next day, virtually.
That's right. Or the technicians would say, sorry, we tried to develop this, but there's a big hair in the gate right from 25 seconds in. And then sometimes it would free itself and roll away. So they might get the middle of the beginning of the scene and the end of the scene and then reshoot the middle of the scene. Or they might have taken 4 different scenes and then they could cut them together and cut out the bit where the hair was. But he'd say to me, just give me the nod. So one time I doing a moment and I didn't feel it was right. And afterwards I was looking a bit glum and he looked at me like, Nick, and I went, I gave him the win. He went, sorry, sir, hair in the gate. What? Hair in the gate. We've got a hair in the gate. Oh, good God, no, surely not. Yeah, I'm sorry, sir. We got a hair in the gate. And we did it again. I didn't pull that stunt too many times, I can tell you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, Nick, and really quickly as well, I mean, and you were talking about, how this whole show has affected, and one of the things that we're trying to do with this event, of course, is focus on those early memories, right? And those early conventions. I mean, the things that started us all off here so many years ago. But I wanted to tell a quick story about and again, 50 years later, I don't know if you remember this or not, but you mentioned something earlier about how people still recognize you and you're playing poker and things like that. But last year in Calgary, we had your photo plastered all up over the hotel. And I don't know if you remember this, but somebody came up that escalator and talked to me and said, that's Nick Tate downstairs. And I went, yeah, and he's right in there. And he was with a tour group from Australia. And of course, they all knew you and remembered you. And I think some of them even wandered in.
I don't remember that. I remember the American businessman that came in and stood there with his mouth hanging open and said, yeah, you were my childhood hero. Can I shake your hand? And I pulled him in and gave him a big hug. And he started sobbing in my arms, And I said, you don't know what this means to me. I said, well, you don't know what it means to me, mate. Thank you. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was with he was doing a convention, another convention. Yeah. My son's arrived with these very noisy dogs. It's a Sunday here, I often meet people who are totally unaware of, not fans at all, playing golf or poker, or somebody in a supermarket will stand and stare at me and I go, and the guy goes, are you who I think you are? And I go, well, it depends on who you think I am. What a silly question. Are you who I think you are? How do I know who you think I am? Or even better, they say, what have I seen you in? I say, well, I don't know, man. What have you seen me in? How do I know what they've seen me in? And then is it Space 1999? Yeah. And as I was telling before you came on the line here, more often than not, it's people that are very technical, people that have become radio technicians, television technicians, people that are just generally got to do with electronics, people that love pilots. Somebody said, what about pilots? Yeah, as I told the story earlier on, the guys invited me up into the front of, I've had Qantas pilots, British Airways pilots. In fact, the head of British Airways for the longest while was named Nick Tate.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Swear to God.
Wow.
I remember once I was given I'm given my ticket, ordinary ticket. Somebody came and said, you've been moved up into first class, Mr. Tate. And I said, really? He said, yes, Captain wanted you to be up here. So I'm thinking, okay, Space 19. I said, thank you. I'm sitting up there and we're flying and he comes down and says hello to me. And he says, are you Nick Tate? And I said, yeah, Nick Tate. And he goes, you're head of British Airways. And I said, no, I'm an actor. And he said, Space 1999. He knew both of us. He knew Nick Tate from Space 1999 and Nick Tate, who was British head of British Airways. He was the British division, and he was living in Hong Kong at the time. And I had flown through Hong Kong, and they put me into first class. A mistake, but I accepted it.
And you still deserved it. Come on.
Yeah, of course I deserved it. Right.
Absolutely. Heather's commenting. Warren's sister says, hello to Roy, an honored guest from the Queen City, Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada.
Hello, Heather.
Hello, Heather.
So in regards to the hotel, I'm going to put that information up real quick. I'm just going to share it so the folks can see that. And there's the hotel.
Yeah, we'll cover a few details here. I know Nick might have to go if your son's there and whatnot, but this won't take very long.
Yeah, I'm just going to go and kiss him and his wife, and then I'll come back out to you.
Feel free. I'll cover the details. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
do that.
Sure. The other funny thing I thought of in the first half of the show is that Nick mentioned that it's Space 1999 seems to be sort of going through somewhat of a renaissance. And it's kind of funny that that's where we're going to end up in London next month at the Renaissance Hotel. So, wah wah. But thanks for everybody for hanging in there, because obviously we did have a hotel change here recently in the last few weeks, and it's been a challenge getting everybody changed over. Some people are staying at the old place. It's right across the street, so it's not really a big deal. But the new facility is going to allow for a better presentation of some of our props and exhibits and displays. The Renaissance, and strangely enough, was actually used in a 1990s, late 80s, early 90s film directed by Charlie Crichton, who of course directed many episodes of Space, called A Fish Called Wanda.
Oh,
with
geez.
Jamie Lee Curtis and Kevin Kline and Michael Palin, and this hotel was actually used as exterior for some of the locations in that movie. So strange little connection there at the same time.
Didn't he win an Academy Award for directing that
I think
movie?
Kevin Kline did for Best Actor. He was remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. But I thought Charlie Crichton, or maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one. He was maybe nominated.
Yeah, I'll have to. I might be slipping, but yeah, it's crazy to think that movie, because I remember thinking, wow, after Space 1999, and then it was, he did that movie. It was like, his name came up, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, actually. So.
Big hit, and of course John Cleese was in it. Of course,
John Cleese. Yep.
Yeah. So no, I mean we're obviously, and this has been and just thanks to everybody over the years. This has been the longest planned convention in history, just because we've had the delays with the pandemic and a couple of delays, but we, of course, Roy and Nick and myself all spun that and made it a positive with the virtual events we held, and those were a lot of fun, and a lot of people came on board for those. So, but now I can't believe it. Like it just seems like yesterday that we were all in Calgary a year ago, and talking about London a year and a half down the road, and here we are. So,
that was lovely, and going off to see the dinosaurs, and what a great thrill it was.
That was 15 months ago already. That's crazy.
Wow.
That's
yeah.
I know you're not supposed to touch something that's 65 million years ago in museums. Please do not touch. How could I not touch it? I had to touch it just a little bit. This is a story that started 65 million years ago. A movie by Steven Spielberg, Jurassic Park. I did that voice everywhere, all over the world. So here I is. This is the creature I've been talking about. 65 million years. I had to touch it just a little bit. I did.
No, it was a really nice time, and those extra little day trips were turned out to be very memorable for a lot of people, and of course we're going to try and do the same thing next month in London with some side trips as well. And along that same lines, I mean, we have sort of added a trip to Stonehenge. I might do the same thing, Nick, and run up to Stonehenge. I'd like to touch it.
Yeah, well, you're not allowed to, but yes, you will. Yeah. My father married again and lived on the Isle of Wight. And if you travel from London to the Isle of Wight via going through the New Forest, Stonehenge is very near the New Forest. And so I would drive past it once a year at least. And I would get out and walk over and stand under the big, they're huge. You wonder how did not modern man, but the Druids, how do they do that? But even more so when you consider the Egyptian pyramids.
Oh yeah, my
Sure.
God.
Yeah. Remarkable.
Sensational stuff, and we're able, and so it's good when you get all the fans together to go to places like that. See,
Yeah,
I
you're
think
really carrying in that bond of the history of all of that, and we in terms. I mean, we're talking about Space 1999 right now, and we're saying 50 years, and I mean, I think all of us 50 years is a long time, but when you're starting to talk about billions of years, when you think that much time has gone on, it's almost hard to comprehend on a certain level because it's
mind-boggling.
Yeah,
mind-boggling. And we think we're important.
Yeah,
man, as we know, man hasn't been here. He hasn't been here a million years.
No.
And there's a museum in London. I don't think it's a history museum. I think it's a science museum. One of the two biggest museums in London, where you walk through the front door of the building, you see in the marble floors that stretch out before you as they go around, they have traces in them so that you can read where you are in history. As you come through the front door, said the Big Bang happens here. And then as you go on, you go through the periods of the prehistoric periods and when the dinosaurs and so on. And you're walking through hundreds of yards of marble, going from room to room to room. And finally, as you're walking out the last door and the exit, the last 2 inches is man arrived on Earth. You see, 2 inches after all, I've just walked a mile. That's how long the billions of years take to be traced into the, we are so insignificant as a creature and as an entity, and the importance that we all feel that we have and are, and this amazing technology that we are now. You're, hundreds of thousands of miles away from each other, and we're all talking instantly as if we're in the same room.
Yeah,
talking to Australia or England or wherever we are. It's just mind-boggling.
It really is,
and so thrilling as well.
Oh yeah, and just a blip on the radar when you think about it. I mean, it's truly remarkable.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to London. I tell people that just recently I had to fly back and shoot this documentary, which is called the Eagle Obsession. The Jeffrey Morris is shooting, and I'm in it because I'm part of the Eagle Obsession. I'm the pilot of the Eagles. Alan Carter was the pilot, and so he wanted me there, and he's contrasting some of the early photographs of Alan Carter with me as an old astronaut, Nick Tate, and he had a new orange spacesuit built for me and everything. Bit baggy, but then spacesuits are. And Space 1999, we didn't need any baggy spacesuits. We all had to look pretty sexy. And so I was slim, and they built me a nice slim spacesuit. Probably it wasn't accurate because, as we've since seen, all spacesuits are much bigger than that. They fill them up with air and all the rest of the things that they have. Probably little toilets inside them too. Won't talk about that. But anyway, so it was a great thrill. And one day, and we went back to Pinewood Studios to shoot this thing. I mean, I've just come back. It was only about six weeks ago that I went and did it. And one day Jeffrey said to me, "You're going to have tomorrow morning off where we're going to be shooting at 4:00 in the afternoon. We're trying to get because they completely recreated the interior of Eagle One, and which you will see when you get to see this documentary." So he said, I've got to go in and talk to the guys in their offices in Soho. So I'm going in the morning, and I'll be back by about 3:00. And I said, "Well, I want to come." And he said, "Well, we don't need you." And I said, "Yeah, but I used to live in London. I shot Space 1999 in London, in England, Heathrow, out at Pinewood Studios." I said, "Soho was my hanging place. I love Soho. It's full of history and so forth. So when we all go back with you, Warren and Roy, that's one of the trips you should do, is go with people into Soho and walk around and say, this is the stamping ground of every actor and I mean, it is the home of so many theaters, Shaftesbury Avenue, all the theaters that I've worked in and been to see so many dramas. I saw Laurence Olivier in Othello at the Globe Theatre in London. I saw Barbara Streisand and one other, many shows that I've seen there. Phantom of the Opera, theatrical bonanzas like being on Broadway. You know,
I was just going to say, you just took the words out of my mouth. It's like, you know, parallel to Broadway. And when you said the Globe Theater, I mean, the history behind that and the people that you were just saying that you saw on, you know, in London there. I mean, there's, again,
I had to stand. I couldn't get a seat because the show was sold out. But sometimes in the theaters in England, if you're a drama student, and I was a drama student, I could show my Actors Equity card and they would give me a special dispensation to come and stand in the back of the dress circle. So I stood in the back of the dress circle. I didn't get a seat. And I stood and I watched Othello from beginning to end with Olivia. He was magnificent. Frank Finlay playing Iago. Oh, what a twosome. Just great stuff. And I loved London. It was my development. I went to England when I was 23 years of age. I was a young actor. I was doing very well in Australia. I just finished a television series in which I played the co-lead called My Brother Jack. And I was the My Brother Jack. And my father, who was living and working in England and had left my mother and me, I hadn't seen him in 7 years and I wasn't very pleased with him. But he said, come on over and let's make amends. Come and see me and I'll help you break into the British industry. So I went to England in 1965 and I went to all those plays. I didn't have the money to get and sit in the front row or about the fourth row is the best place in the middle. So I stood in the back of a lot of the theaters. I saw Barbara Streisand doing Funny Girl.
Wow.
At the same time. And I couldn't hear her when she talked. You could hear her when she sang. But when she talked, and I'm up the back going, I can't hear this woman. But when she sang, you know, she had a great voice. But that was her thing, you know. She was a singer. She's a magnificent actress as well, of course. But she didn't have the theatrical chops at the time to be able to produce the vocality. Mind you, she was pregnant. So she was playing Funny Girl pregnant on the West End of London, which is, you know, she tried to hide the fact that we knew she was. So I give her all the credo in the world because I think she's one of the most magnificent performers of our time. I've been very lucky, the people I've seen, the people I've worked with. I've worked with Meryl Streep in Cry in the Dark. I've worked with Dustin Hoffman and Robin Williams in Hook. God, the list goes on and on and on. Wonderful people. Cry Freedom with Denzel Washington and the man that played Donald Woods, who later came and saw me in Australia. Kevin Kline. Kevin Kline was in Sophie's Choice with Meryl Streep, and I'd seen him in Sophie's Choice, and I thought he was magnificent. So when I went to do Cry Freedom for Richard Attenborough in Africa, Kevin was playing Donald Woods, the lead character. It's actually his story about how he wants to tell the world about Steve Biko. And Steve Biko was kind of like the next Mandela, and the South African police murdered him. It's a magnificent, well, it's a horrendous story, but it's a wonderful film called Cry Freedom. I've done 2 films called Cry Freedom and Cry in the Dark. And they both have magnificent actors. Meryl Streep is Cry in the Dark with Sam Neill, and I play Inspector Charlwood with him. I was to play the author that helps Donald Woods fly out of Africa, but it all got crazy with my timing. I couldn't get to Africa in time, and so when I finally did come to back to England, the casting director said to me, I'd like just to send you over to Africa to play the pilot that flies in and picks up Donald Woods with the Australian author. And that was played by a wonderful Australian actor who sadly died of AIDS, Johnny Hargraves. And he knew that they had wanted me for the role, and that was a great meeting to meet him in Africa. But working with Richard Attenborough and I actually didn't work with Denzel Washington because his character was already dead when my character came and picked up Donald Woods, and it was just such a thrill because I am like anybody else. I am a fan of great acting. I'm a fan of Sir Laurence Olivier. I'm a fan of Anthony Hopkins. I'm a fan of Meryl Streep, and I get just as big a lump in my throat when I meet them, and I have to work with them, and I want to work with them, and it just brings out the very best in you. It's like playing tennis with somebody that really can play tennis. They're banging a ball at you that nobody else ever hits it with that power or that finesse. And if you can get it back, then you deserve to be standing there. And that's the way I always feel about acting with some of these big stars, that I'm going to give them a game that they'll remember, and that it's like being in Wimbledon, I'm going to hit that ball back, man, because I want to be there with them.
Well,
And
it's helping to bring out the best in you, and it brings your caliber up, and it's the adrenaline.
Exactly right. I might not win the match, but I'm not there to win the match. I'm there to give them a great game.
Yeah.
And I've often likened the talent and the dedication of acting to being a Wimbledon tennis player. People have said to me, how did you get into this player? How did you do that? And how do you rate that, getting into that position? I said, well, it's a bit like, being a tennis player. You can be the best tennis player in your local area. You can even win all your school trophies. Then you might get into the regionals and start winning trophies there too. And then you might even get picked to be the champion of the state that you're in. And if you get picked to be the champion of the state you're in, I mean, you'd have to deserve to be picked because you've got so much practice to do and so many hours to put in. Eventually, you might even get to play and win for your country. But can you get to Wimbledon? And if you get to Wimbledon, can you even pass the entry? There's 36 people that started Wimbledon. You go 36, 18. No, that's not right. It's got to be half and half. 23. No, come on, guys. What's half?
No, 18 is half of 36. You were right.
Okay, but then the next 9 can't be that. So it must be somewhere along the line. You get down to 4 and then 2. And when they're in the absolute final, I mean, I've been at Wimbledon. I've sat and I've watched McEnroe play Borg right in the front row because I was acting then and making some money. I could get and those matches that McEnroe played against Borg, 4 years in a row, they went to five sets. And then Borg won all 3 of the first matches they ever played, or sets. And then McEnroe finally won in the last time, and it was gigantic in life. I like it.
Everything that you're talking about, though, is, I mean, like Ryan right now is in Paris, and he's been there for 3 weeks, and he's been experiencing the Olympics, and
yes.
It's something that it's been he would love. That's his dream, to be in the Olympics, to do that, because he's a runner, as you know. And he's been there for the last 3 weeks. He saved for it for the last 2 years. And it's like a life-changing bucket list experience for him. It is just so incredible. And it just really changes or morphs you by having those experiences, because you're experiencing not, the best of the best, the ones that have actually, excelled and have actually gotten to that level. So I'm kind of
coming in 4 years' time to LA.
Yeah.
Yeah. My kids are excited, because I took them all back to Australia in the year 2020 when we did the Olympics. And they were all loving America and saying how much they loved America. And I said, I want you to come home and watch the Olympics in Australia. Oh, Dad, well, it's a long way to go, And they didn't realize. So I take them out to Australia, and they watched the Olympics, and the camaraderie that was happening. All the transport was free. Americans, Russians, Italians, French, everybody on public transport. Nobody pays. You can go anywhere you like in Sydney, not just out to the Olympic Games. Public transport was free for the 3 weeks that the people are in the city doing the Olympics. And the camaraderie and the joining together of humanity.
There's
Didn't
nothing
matter
like
whether
it.
you're black or yellow or brown or white, Russian or Turkish or Hungarian, whatever you were, everybody just were there enjoying the Olympics. That's what I love about the Olympics. It really brings people together.
And you know what? And I will use that as a pivot point to go back to Space 1999. And I think that is something that, and I know Star Trek, especially in the 60s, touched upon this, but I really feel that this is something that's true with 1999, especially in the first series. You had representatives from different parts of the world that were coming together to be on that moon base, to work together. And it was something that really drove the energy, drove the show, and really made it function. And I think it's something that really just kind of touched upon everybody. And we're seeing today, we have viewers that, love this show, and we've known this for years and years. It's worldwide. And I think that is probably part of the reason why, one of the many, many appeals of the show, and why it's touched so many fans from different areas of the world.
Yes. And we had a lot of Italian money in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the pilot, Alphonse Catani, who became Alan Carter, was going to be Italian. And why they brought, when they didn't let me do Dragons of Maine, they brought in a wonderful Italian actor to play that role, because there was Italian money in the show, and they wanted to show the difference and how it was a universal effort. On Moonbase Alpha, there were Chinese, there were African Americans, there were Italians, although it turns out that didn't have the regular Italians we thought we were going to have. And I know that when Lee Katzin thought that I could take his place, he said, "What about Nick Tate?" And Sylvia said, "Oh, he's Australian." And he said, "Well, that's all right. They have Australians." And I was in the room because Sylvia liked me, and she'd brought me into the show to play that pilot that was going to die, but she wasn't sure that I could play a leading role of this size. She wanted a star to play the part. She was so, when he said, it's cosmopolitan. If he can't be Australian, then perhaps he could be, because I tried to do it as an Italian. They auditioned me to see if I could play the role of Alphonse Catani. And my Italian accent was not that good. So, no. He said, all right, but it's a universal people on the moon. So what about, he looks German, looks with blonde hair, blue eyes. Can you do German? And I went, jawohl, I speak to Deutsch. But, we will ask the questions was not going to cut it. They didn't like me doing that. So, no. Then he said, well, all right, well, what about an Australian? I didn't play an Australian. She said, there's no Australians on the moon. I said, there's no bloody English on the moon either. And he went, "See, that's right. That's the arrogance of this character. We're going to have him." Yeah. And I went away thinking that Sylvia was very discombobulated and a little bit annoyed that he'd done that. And that was at about midday. At 3:00 in the afternoon, my agent rang me and said, "What did you do?" And I said, what do you mean? What did I do? He said, "They just rang and offered you the lead astronaut." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, what did you do?" I said, "Well, they auditioned me," and I told him the story, and he said, "Well, they've decided they like you." I cannot tell you what a day that was for me.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Because, that was 50 years ago, almost that. Well, no, longer, actually. I had no concept then of what it really meant, and that all these years, all this great fandom and from all over the world. And there are many, many people, as I've said, who can't even remember the show that well. And then they see a piece of it and go, "Oh my God, that was my childhood. Oh, I love that show." And it comes flooding back to them.
It opens the gates.
It had that effect on people. It's going to be a great convention in London. I'm really looking forward to it. It's the home of Space 1999. It's where we made the show.
Yeah.
And we're going out to Pinewood Studios to show people that too. It's going to be a big thrill, and it's very worthy. And I'm so pleased that you're putting it together. I thank you.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
thank you for inviting me.
absolutely. I mean, we wouldn't dream of not hosting you and having you there. And really quickly, and Roy, I know you've taken all the time to put these slides together, and I know we're running overtime, so I'll just sort of briefly touch on the day trips, but I'd like to focus on the 3 weekend days a little more heavily. This is our first day trip on September the 11th to Milton Keynes, and there's a very prestigious museum up there with a number of pieces and screen used items from the series, including the original Moonbase Alpha model, and it's called the National Film and Sci-Fi Museum. So we're going to take a trip up there with everybody on, that's Wednesday the 11th. Thursday the 12th, we have sort of an open day just in and around London. And Nick, your suggestion, we might put that to good use. We don't really have anywhere specific in mind. This is sort of an open day there's a few things that we could possibly end up doing. And then, of course,
can I just interrupt you and say
sure.
that when I went into Soho, Soho, of course, is where Piccadilly Circus is.
Yes.
I walked around Piccadilly Circus, which is, there's a big fountain there, and Peter Pan at the fountain, and all these thousands of people. And suddenly there was all these blue lights, and people turned around. There was motorbikes screeching to a halt and nearly knocking me down. And this big maroon Rolls Royce just cruised right past me. I could have reached out and touched the door. King Charles, right there in front of me.
Oh my!
And he just looked at me and kind of nodded, and I nodded, and I just turned my camera off. I thought I was filming, and I was holding it up because it was my iPhone, because I had no idea that I mean, I don't really care much about royalty, I have to say, but there he was, and with this blonde, curly-headed woman sitting next to him, who, of course, was Camilla, the new Queen of England. So, you know, it's a big thrill to see royalty, I got to say.
Absolutely.
We should go to Piccadilly Circus.
Yeah, that would be really nice, and that's a great idea. We'll see if we can throw that together in the next few weeks. We got the transport booked already, but no destination specifically in mind for the Thursday. So that'll certainly be on the table.
Before you go on, Warren, I just want to say hi to Brian Jackson. Brian is out there. He said hi to us. Sorry, everyone, that I'm late. Brian, thanks for joining, and good to see you out there as always.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
And Brian is in London. He's in England, so he's going to be there too.
Yeah, for sure. Roy, if I'm not sure. Do you have the slides in order day by day?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll jump right into the convention itself then really quickly. So obviously Breakaway Day, Friday the 13th is going to be a big celebration, a little less traditional from a con perspective. It's going to be more about that celebratory aspect of this very special anniversary. And of course, the mini Space 1999 holiday that is Breakaway Day, September 13th. So we'll be having a registration to be held in the morning, with an opening ceremonies commencing at around 1 p.m. on that day. We'll have a special opening ceremony panel with any of our guests that are available and willing to take part in that for the first 30 minutes or so, or maybe an hour. Then we'll have a couple of guest speakers come on after that. And I can sort of confirm, I did so earlier this week, that on the Friday, Jamie Anderson will be appearing and speaking to the fans in attendance that day about everything to do with his father's legacy and memories of the series and what it means to him after all this time. And then actually Jamie will be sort of branching off, and it sounds like he has a very famous podcast. So of course, the last few Breakaway Days, he's gone live each and every time. So he'll be sort of hosting a live podcast in the exhibitors area as well, which will be nice. They'll have some cool and exciting announcements, of course, all things to do with Anderson Entertainment. And then we'll break off into some autographs and photo ops, sort of mid-afternoon as well. And then Friday, of course, we're going to be having a banquet, a dinner with the stars. So that's going to take place around 7 p.m., last for a couple of hours. And if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, I just want to point out they will be available until the 15th of this month. So just a few more days, but we're getting close to capacity on the banquet. I've been asked about the dress code, and although we've been calling it a formal banquet, I think I just put out there today, and Isabel was joking about it. I've called it formal / cosplay. So in other words, it's like whatever you want, whatever you feel comfortable with. We're not going to be checking a dress code at the door or things like that. It's completely open, and of course the cosplay is always a fun aspect. And we've always encouraged it throughout the weekend, and certainly during that formal banquet. Hey, let's have some fun with it, right? So then beyond that, on the Friday, around 9 p.m., then say a couple hours for the banquet, we will open things back up to everybody. So the banquet, of course, is a ticketed event, but anybody who's going to be sort of roaming around the hotel Friday evening can come back after the banquet, and join us for the very special screening of Breakaway, the theatrical cut, which is a very special version that we've been working on the last year. And it's sort of the whole idea was sort of based around finding those Martin Landau tapes from a year ago, and it's just a fascinating and unique glimpse into what could have been. There's a story that surfaced through David and Bob's book here recently, that there was actually an agenda. They were thinking about taking Breakaway theatrical and maybe even premiering it at Cannes. So this is sort of an interpretation of what that theatrical cut might have looked like. So it's of course been framed in widescreen for the very first time, and it includes some lost audio clips which have been found thanks to years ago Simon Rhodes and David Sisson. And so the lost audio has been reinserted for several scenes, including a major scene from Nick towards the end of the episode during the breakaway. And then there's various techniques which we've used to sort of recreate or give a visual sense of these lost audio clips as well. So it is essentially an expanded version, and it's sort of an interpretation of what this theatrical cut may have looked like.
Very cool.
Yay!
And that'll be on Friday. So that's something to look forward to after the banquet.
I'd certainly be interested to see old footage that's never been used.
Yeah, I mean, especially with those audio clips, because it definitely lends to the extended information, extended dialogue, and also storyline, where the stories potentially could go in a different direction, or maybe there's more characterization with that. So it's going to be very interesting to see. And no, I know you've been working on that project for quite a time, so that's going to be really cool. And then again, Warren, that will be after the banquet on Friday, September 13th, which times out with Breakaway Day, right?
Yeah, for sure. So that's long story short. So Friday is going to be a very special day. Hope everybody can join us. The Saturday, Sunday, of course, will be more traditional convention style days with Q&A panels and photo ops and a couple different rooms set up, and of course the props and exhibits we'll have. And just a couple of bullet points. Of course, we'll have a number of original props and pieces, screen used items, including Andrew Frampton's original 44-inch Eagle 2. Of course, we were able to display Eagle 3 a year ago in Calgary. So a piece of history for sure. And we thank everybody. Martin Willie's going to be coming with a number of pieces. And then, of course, this is very exciting, but we're actually going to have our very own Eagle cockpit on hand for everybody to thanks to Daryl Simmons, who's been hard at work on that. And everybody's been, I'm sure, watching the progress there. And then, a couple other presentations video-wise. We have found some alternate cuts of the episodes, a couple other episodes. Of course, the big one is Metamorph. We found a complete alternate version there, and a couple of scenes from Guardian of Perry. So we'll be, scheduling these throughout the remainder of the weekend. Fanderson's going to be on hand, of course, throughout the weekend. Sunday as well, and she's going to be joining us even for the banquet. But Samira Ahmed, who was on the very famous BBC program Mastermind a few years ago, and she hosts a radio talk show on BBC4, I believe. And Samira is going to be joining us for a very special panel on Sunday as well. So lots of things and lots of people coming and going throughout the weekend. And Nick, of course, hey, we might even have your original spacesuit. We'll see if we can get you into that and see if it still fits. Okay.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, get me into that.
For sure. So.
Yes, I do want the opportunity to be able to sit and talk with I'm happy to be in as many panels as you want me to be in. And I've said to you before, there are times when folks want to keep on asking me the same questions over and over. I'd rather be able to say to people, look, I'm doing a time at 4:00 tomorrow, and just me, and we can all sit and ask the special questions then. As long as there's that time set aside, I don't wish to be taking up other people's time.
Yeah, and no, for sure. So we've got a couple of solo Q&A panels scheduled for you as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
You can go keep.
Wonderful. And then, yeah, so just to finish up, guys, then on Monday, of course, we've got the trip to, and sorry, Roy, if you're jumping around.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
We'll be going to Pinewood and Black Park, of course, on Monday. And Roy, you and I have relayed the story several times of what a big thrill this was for you and I back in 2014 when we came over for Peterborough to make this trip. And we actually had two choices, and this is going to segue into the final trip. But we had two choices. Roy and myself and my sister Heather were there, and friend Patty. And it was, we could go to Pinewood Studios or we could go to Stonehenge. And of course, we chose Pinewood. So it was quite the adventure. So we're going to sort of recapture that elation that Roy and I had back in 2014. And I do want to point out now, we have tried. There's of course, Pinewood is a completely open and functioning studio, and with this being on a Monday, the chances of any form of access or lot tour, we've never really tried to promote that. We've always sort of said, hey, we'll be lucky to drive up and do that quick photo op outside the gates, just like Roy and I did a year ago, before being chased off by security. And that's
and
really
interject on that. And
sure.
Really, I mean, the energy, I mean, just being outside the gates. I mean, I've actually had the opportunity to be at Paramount Studios in California. But now the difference is Paramount does like an official tour. They have that set up there. It's something that some studios do, and there's some studios that do not do it for liability reasons, and that's just the way it is. Pinewood does not do any type of official tours. However, Paramount did, and just being outside the gates the first time I was there was breathtaking, because you think about all the history and everything that's taken place, all the actors and all the writers and the producers and the directors. I mean, I think back, to the 1950s and 40s and 30s, and just going back, and well, Paramount was Desilu Studios even before it was Paramount. But the point is that there's so much history. In regards to Pinewood Studios, doing that 10 years ago when we were in Peterborough was incredible, because, I mean, it's just, everybody knows. I mean, right away, I think about, of course, Space 1999, and then you think about the James Bond films. And then, of course, Star Wars. And part of the reason why we got chased away was because Star Wars they were in the process of shooting the one Star Wars movie, and there was so much security. And it's like, that was the last thing we were thinking about, is trying to get onto the Millennium Falcon. It was more about, trying to get to stages L and M to see, just the buildings. And what was really cool was we actually had the opportunity to go to Black Park, which borders Pinewood Studios. And that in itself was very intense and was very nostalgic, because, again, the footprints of time, the people, all the movies that have been filmed there again, and then all the different series. You think of the Hammer films and everything, and of course 1999 with Full Circle and the Rules of Luton with the lake, just to name a couple of things. And it's just it was pretty cool moments, doing that. And of course, like to tell the story, we biked to the border.
Well, just let me interrupt you there. Whilst I was at Pinewood. I was there for nearly 4 years. November of 1973, all through 1974, right up until March of 75, and then gone for the next 9 months, and back again for all of 76. We were always in the studio with big fences around, but beyond the fences, you could see trees, big trees. I mean, we're talking like dense woods. And so when we shot Full Circle,
yeah, Full Circle.
Full Circle, we went out into those woods, and trust me, you could have been on another planet somewhere. And indeed, as it was depicted in the show, it was another planet. And I thought, isn't it amazing? You know, for 4 years, I've just been behind that fence, and I didn't realize this massive jungle, forest, not a jungle, a forest was here. We used it several times after that. Yeah, it's very historic. The studios themselves are very, very different now. As I told you, I was there for the best part of 4 years on and off, and getting there every morning, and had to park outside in the parking lot outside. I didn't get a Rolls Royce that would take me right to my door. Martin and Barbara did, but I could do with the walk. I liked the walk. It was about a quarter of a mile to walk from the parking lot into L&M that was across the other side of the studios. But it was a good morning thing for me to do. I used to get there at 6:30 every morning. Wow. And I'd just fallen out of bed. I didn't have any breakfast. I'd drive to the studios, no matter what I'd been doing the night before. And then I would go to my room and I would shower and shave. The first thing I would do, because I had my own dressing room. And then I get into my costume that was sitting there waiting for me. I'd go down to wardrobe and makeup, and I'd be on set by 7 o'clock. You know, because they would always shoot early with the support crew, which I was part of. Martin and Barbara didn't start filming until, I don't know, after 8 o'clock, because they would come rolling in the Rolls Royce right to the door. Occasionally, Martin would pass me and he'd say, "Do you want to ride, Nicky?" And I'd sometimes get in and go with them. Most of the time, I didn't bother. I didn't want to. I wanted to walk. And it was when Martin became very pally with me. He said, "Come on, Nicky, hop in the room. This is a silver." He used to love it. "This is a silver cloud, you know." And I said, yeah. Isn't it amazing? I'd never been in a silver cloud before, but he loved it. Martin loved all things that were English. He was a real American guy and became something of an Anglophile, and loved the fact that he could have it all, you know. He was a very enthusiastic human being to be around most of the time, Martin. And our birthdays are a day apart. I was the 18th of June, he's the 19th of June. So there's something to be said for our personalities, of those of you that care about the Zodiac. There's some similarities about us. I think it's got to do with our passion for the acting world, really, and our duplicity to be able to play funny people and to play aggressively dramatic people. Martin's a great dramatic actor, and he's a wonderful comic. I think I'm not bad at both myself, and I think it has to do with the fact that we are Geminis, that we have that duplicity where my wife says I'm two people. She's probably right. Martin most certainly was two people. I'll talk to you more on the convention. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'll tell you, Nick, real quick, and thank you. That video you did for everybody a week ago, I tell you, the engagement and the fan response, just to that alone, there are so many people really, really looking forward to meeting you next month.
Yes.
Both Italy and London. Yeah.
It was a nice boost that Todd put in there with the using, I think it was the Xenia visit to, do you know where it comes from?
Are you talking? He just sort of edited it a fun way with like the big screen and things like that.
Yeah, but I mean that contact with Earth.
That was pretty neat. It was almost
Yeah.
Nice touch.
Exactly.
It was really good.
You know, wasn't it Xenia that it was originally dubbed for?
Yeah, it was a message from Moonbase Alpha. That was he was trying to.
Yeah. And that's what's interesting about it.
Yeah.
But they must have taken it from other things as well, because it wasn't shot originally for that either. Do you know what episode it came from, or is it a series of different?
I think it was actually parts of it were from Breakaway, if I remember correctly. I think because he was.
You know the question where you say, "Did you know?" and she said, "I didn't know that." Work out what that moment came from. What didn't she know?
Yeah, I'll have to go back and rewatch it because.
But then I don't want to be spoiling what the fans are thinking.
Yeah.
It is, because it works on its own as it is.
Sure. Yeah, because the clips are interactive, which is with what's being shown on the big screen, and it's amazing again where we are. This is a point that you brought up earlier, and I had mentioned this to Todd. The technology to be able to do that. I mean, it's one thing that we're able to do what we're doing right now, but what you can do with video. I mean, I remember back maybe like 35, 40 years ago with my friends on during the summer, we would take our Super 8 movie cameras. We'd write a script and we'd be filming, and then we'd get all excited. Then we'd be editing it and, trying to make these Super 8 films that we would put together. Now the kids have their iPhones and you can make a movie that's almost like, somewhat professional by comparison. It's
but how they put it up on that big screen in Moonbase Alpha again, that was very clever. Really made you believe you're there. Right. Guys, I gotta go, and I know you do too. I want to say thank you for putting this together. The next best thing is going to be we'll all be together in England and in Italy. And I hope that the fans can come and see us.
Well said. We're so excited, and thank you again for all your support and even your time today. And Roy, thanks for everything.
Yeah, of course. And as always, Nick, thank you so much for being on. And always, you're definitely a friend of the show, and it's much appreciated. Warren, thank you for coming on to tell everybody about everything. And Silvana, I know she's probably fast asleep because Italy's 6 hours from here, in time wise. But Silvana, if you're out there and you're watching on the rewind, thank you for being on earlier, and it was very, very much appreciated.
Silvana.
So,
Silvana. He was in Italy. Silvana, eh?
That's sweet of me coming out.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao. Thank you.
Take care, Nick.
I don't know how to do it.
Oh, I'll push you out. Talk to you soon, Nick. Bye-bye.
See you, Nick. There we go. What a champ. I mean, he's got family visiting today and everything, and he still took the time.
Yeah, no, Nick's a great guy, as we know. So, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we?
Well, we were pretty close. We're pretty close, and just Monday, Pinewood, Black Park, of course, and then Bray. So we were originally going to do Bray on Tuesday, but we've decided to incorporate everything into that one trip because they were only 20 minutes apart. And then, so it's going to be and wandering around Black Park, like Roy said, is going to be a treat in and of itself. So hope you can all join us for that. Those day trips are officially cut off. As far as our transportation, there's nothing stopping anybody though from joining us on their own. Of course, there's various ways to get out there, and we've had the most response on this Pinewood excursion, so it's going to be a really fun and exciting day. And then, of course, Tuesday we've added that trip to Stonehenge. So we'll be traveling to this monument, of course, and very exciting. I'm excited. You can't get up close and personal, like Nick said, but it's the idea of just being there, like, and to travel it. And this is, I mean, like the pyramids. I mean, you're never going to experience anything like this before. A lot of the folks in the UK, of course, they've probably done this several times, but this is really still going to be exciting for anybody flying in from other countries.
No, and it's something. I remember this being mentioned 10 years ago about this, and
right,
I wasn't, sadly, I wasn't even aware of this. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to see. And now in regards to where the hotel is, and I don't know logistically, how far is Stonehenge from the hotel? Just out of curiosity.
It's by land, by vehicle. It's a couple-hour drive.
Okay, so it's not that far then. I mean, with a couple hours, when you consider everything.
For you and I, coming from North America, a couple hours doesn't seem like that
right.
much. But it's all in perspective, of course. And it's looking forward to it. I'm glad we're able to combine the Pinewood Bray trips and then add this one for everybody flying in, because that was my one regret with going to Peterborough the first time, Roy, is that we had that one free day. We made the choice to go to Pinewood, but it still would have been nice to go to Stonehenge and
Yeah, of
and
course.
and take away that opportunity at that moment. I mean, that's one thing that I was real pleased to be able to offer to everybody this time out again, because especially if you're coming from other countries and internationally, it's nice to be able to combine that. Better value, better long lasting memories, I think, to also take part in something like Stonehenge.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're in the if you're there, and you can do it, it's definitely it makes it worth it to try to consolidate everything, and achieve those different stops. I mean, when I was out in California, I went to Vasquez Rocks. I mean, back in 2016. I mean, and that was a bucket list. And when I met with the curator, because they have a museum there, and for the folks out there that are Star Trek fans, of course, Vasquez Rocks was used in classic Star Trek a ton of times, also in some of the new incarnations, but movie wise and television series wise, going back to like the 30s, 40s, and 50s, because it has those incredible rock formations. So to your point, if you're doing this trip and you've traveled, no matter where you've traveled from, whether it's being in the country or out of the country, this is an opportunity to not only potentially see it, but then you can go with friends as well too. So which is really cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Roy, I just want to point out, I have my tie-dye shirt on underneath, if you can see it there, but I did slip on, and I don't know if anybody's noticed, but this is brand new, hot off the presses. So we'll also have some nice T-shirts available for everybody in London as well.
Cool. London, 1999. And thanks, yeah, the Royce Tie-Dye Sci-Fi corner shirt. Now, the last trip, which this is something that's been talked about a lot too, is between September 18th and the 20th.
Yeah, I almost forgot about this. There's so much else going on, and I'd still really like to go. This was sort of included as an add-on excursion, and the idea all along was, for everybody to make their own way, make their own bookings, right? We were going to try and see who wanted to go and meet up in Port Marion, where they filmed The Prisoner, of course. Thanks, Jenny, for the comment on the T-shirt. And yeah, I mean, this would have been, or it will be, like a night or two up north, then, in this very scenic, famous little village, Port Marion, and I'd love to go. There's been a couple people respond. I mean, I think we'll still be able to make our way up there. I mean, you're still welcome to regardless, or things like that. But very exciting. I'd love to go, and of course, it's up north near Liverpool. I'd like to go to Abbey Road, things like that. Again, just to make the excursion that much more worthwhile. So hopefully, we'll be spending a couple nights up north as well.
That's talk about a place that's a bucket list. On the bucket list to go to. That would definitely be the village. Absolutely.
Yep. 100%. So yeah, no, that's about the extent of the week. I mean, this has been, like I was starting to say earlier. I mean, it's been an interesting 4 years since we first announced this, and there's been ups and downs and hurdles which we've overcome, and it's just so incredibly hard to believe that it's just right around the corner now. And we just and Roy and to everybody who's been so helpful behind the scenes, with planning and prep for this event. I mean, it's going to be, yeah, I'm going to say it. It's the largest in history, and it's our guest list alone. And we didn't even get into that, Roy, but we've got 17 confirmed guests at this point, with more to come. So it is going to be an overly exciting weekend, and we hope you can all join us. Of course, you have the slide up, www.space199950years.com. You can follow us on Facebook, and all of the guests are just really excited as well. And you could see from Nick's reaction, he is so thrilled and so just touched to be included in this special celebration, honoring 50 years and in history of this show that we all love so much. Yeah, there'll be a lot of remembrances and stories from down through the years, and we would really like to honor those very, very early conventions and events that sort of set everything off and laid the foundation for fan conventions and events 40, 50 years later. Wonderful.
Andrew, just to let you know, Andrew's asking a question. Hi, Warren. Is there a support package for those who can't make the convention?
That's a fantastic question. Thank you, and we appreciate that. Yes, on the website there is a supporting membership option, and yeah, we'll have some goodies that we'll be able to provide as well for anybody who wanted to opt for that. It goes a long way. It helps us. It supports the charities, and we'll make sure you get some nice keepsakes from the event itself. So thank you.
And Ruby asked, T-shirts only available in London.
At this point, yes. Thank you, Ruby. Always feel free to reach out to me, and you can email Destination Moonbase Alpha. The other thing that we've done, just so everybody knows, and there's a nice poster of all the guests. So there's 17 guests there. We have, for the first time, offered pre-sales for autographs and photo ops, of course, and those are available for anybody who is unable to attend as well. We're happy to provide that. We can't do specific items. We've had a couple requests. Can they send like a DVD set or something? That would be a little too tough to coordinate. Plus, we'd be feeling horrible if something happened, but we'll certainly, if anybody wants some autographs, just reach out to us, drop us a line, and we'll get those off in the mail shortly after the event.
Cool.
Photo ops, and real quick, this is I think the first time there's been somewhat of a professional photo op. Of course, in the larger shows, these are quite common nowadays. We're going to have essentially one group or cast photo op each day around the midday each day. We'll run them for about an hour. The cost is £65. You can buy 1, 2, or 3 tickets. It's up to you. The idea is, and again, I've been talking to Roy on the schedule, is that there'll be nothing really locked or confirmed. It will be simply each day as I'm sorry, my phone's going off. We will have a group photo op with whoever's available and feeling up to it at the time. With a lot of our guests up there in years, and we don't want to have them feel a particular obligation with Q&A and photo op times and sessions. It's going to be very loose. So, but long story short, yeah, the photo ops will be £65. Our friend Martin Bend will be helping out, taking professional photos, and we will send digital copies off to everybody after that. And as well, if it all works out, we won't know a lot of this until we're there and we figure out those final layouts of the exhibits and things like that. But of course, we're going to try and have that photo op close to or in front of Daryl's nice Eagle cockpit replica. So sort of as a backdrop. So we'll see, if that all comes together. No guarantees at this point. It's up in the air, but that's sort of our goal.
Gotcha. And let me just see if anybody else has any questions. I'm just making sure I was trying to address all the comments that came through. I think
yeah
got everything as far as the comments. Let me see here.
Looks good. I'm just reviewing my schedule as well here, but yeah, we'll schedule a number of different Q&A panels throughout the weekend. And I forgot to mention that Dee Anderson will be appearing as well. We're going to get the official word on Dee here later this week. Jamie, of course, and a number of family members that we haven't really touched on yet, but of course, and even going back to the virtuals, Roy, I mean, we had a number of special guests, family members of the cast and crew who worked on the series, and there's a number of names there. We'll let everybody ponder that, but we'll try and get the word out there on some of the family which will be attending as well, to sort of share some remembrances and recollections of maybe being very, very young, going to work with mom and dad and walking those sets. Kind of some cool stories I think we're going to hear there.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you think about that. I always thought of and I'm putting this name out there, but hopefully it doesn't get anybody all excited, because I'm not referencing this person for the event, but you know, when we watched Alpha Child back in the day, you know what I mean? Wayne Brooks. I mean, it was so cool to think as a 5-year-old, could you imagine, you know, being on, you know, the sets, and then, you know, he actually had his own, you know, his own uniform, which was really cool. And then, you know, he was, you know, using the comm lock. I mean, I was like, oh my God, that was just like so cool. And just, you know, to be able to, you know, handle that and do that. And then he, you know, he was in the Eagle with, you know, with Nick, and, you know, and then he was up, you know, with, you know, Martin with Commander Koenig by, you know, his office, and he's going through the computer console. I mean, just, you know, doing all that kind of stuff that we, you know, would have loved to have done. And I mean, when I watched that episode, that was what, 75, I was 9 years old. So he was,
He was our age, and yeah, who didn't want to be Wayne Brooks?
Right.
Like
Yeah,
it's remarkable.
It's so cool. But yeah, so I mean, there's definitely people that, and I think we've talked about it, but you know, if people will be surprised, so I'll just keep that. I won't say anything right
for
now.
sure. There will be, yes, and let me just end on that note, Roy, and thanks for jogging my memory. So there's announcements yet to come. There's some very, very special surprises that absolutely nobody knows of, that are going to be very, very memorable. You will not want to miss them. They might be one time only. So if you're not there, unfortunately, you might hear about it, but it's just, you know, we really want to reward. I mean, at the same time, I mean, even with those breakaway, of course, we're going to try and get those, see if we can get those out there to the population. We're not, you know, if we can arrange for a release for those. I mean, there's been so much interest and so much excitement around these different edits, and of course, we're going to go to bat. You know, I'm referencing a couple other little things that might be there and have never been seen in 50 years and might not ever be seen again. You know, from a museum or an exhibit perspective. So, yeah, lots of surprises as well. A Saturday night. And I think Roy's going to take part in this. There'll be a trivia and a fun a quiz to participate in, and lots of sort of uh, door prizes, raffles throughout, and of course the big auctions. I'd like to point out as well. We're of course going to have the big auction will be held Sunday, you know, closer towards the closing ceremonies as they traditionally are. But on that Friday breakaway, we are going to have a couple of special auctions. Private bids are welcome. Sealed bids, if you want to drop me a line again in advance, or if you're not going to be there, no problem at all. But we're going to have, of course, the two very special binders of documentation that we've acquired from Martin Landau's estate. And these documents are an complete and comprehensive history and genesis of the entire series and their time working on it, right from the very first a letter from their agent, and to several pieces from Jerry Anderson, Group 3 Productions, Abe Mandel, Brian Johnson, personalized letters from Martin Landau, Barry Morris, Sylvia Anderson. Just it's like the Akashic Records of Space 1999. It really, really is. So these two binders will be auctioned on Breakaway Day as part of those celebrations. And then, of course, we're really happy to finally, we tried this on the virtual, didn't work out, but Prentice Hancock's guitar that he played in both Black Sun. Yes, and Christian's chiming in, and Bob Wood pointed this out to me. He played it in Guardian of Fury as well. So very, very cool, and so kind and generous of Mr. Hancock to be presenting this unique piece to help support our auctions.
I remember when he did that with the Comlock at the '99 convention in LA. And he did that.
Yeah,
and that was it was amazing to see. Actually, I have a couple pictures of that too. Of the Comlock. It's crazy, and it's a block of wood. But on screen, it looked pretty amazing, and it's still pretty amazing. It's it's history. It's a piece of history, and that's 25 years ago, which is crazy. And then 25 years before that was the show. So it's like, where is the time going?
Well, and we've all come full circle, and 50 years later, and
no pun intended.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that is just one thing that I'm going to hint at here loosely for everybody is that there's going to be a moment throughout this weekend that will hopefully resonate with people very, very deeply, and something very, very special we put together to be presented. And yeah, I can't thank everybody enough again for your support, your guidance and wisdom from whether it's behind the scenes and like I said, people like Roy and down through the years, Rosie, Bob Wood, David Hirsch, everybody that came to Calgary, and everybody that's going to help going forward over these next 3 weeks and throughout that weekend. I'm so grateful to everybody who's been behind us 100%. This is going to be a very special weekend, one for the history books, and we hope you can join us.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I think it's pretty amazing, when you think about these events being done. I mean, just from what Silvana was saying too about what they have done and everything in Italy, it's definitely a smaller event by comparison, but the spirit is very, very strong, which I think is what it's all about in the end. So it's really very important and very special. And with this event, this is going to be very special because it's crazy to think that it is the 50th anniversary, and you've managed to bring a lot of people together for this. So you've done a really good job with that. And I think that in itself will make it very special. And then also, as she was pointing out about the friendships that have been forged over, at least over the last 25 years from when they've been doing the conventions, there's a lot of people, I mean, that have been doing these events, that started out in 1978. And a lot of those people, are still involved in some capacity today, whether it's even, if you're just being a fan of the show or what have you. And it is pretty remarkable. I mean, one of the stories I love to tell is like when I went to the 99 convention and I saw Barry Morris, everybody's taking, flashing the pictures of everybody and everything. But Barry Morris had his camera out and he was taking pictures of the fans. And it just really was touching that. And that's just like one piece of it. And you hear these similar stories that it's a family reunion, and there's different things that happen. People, some people kind of drop out as the years go by, and then they come back, or people have been through it, throughout the entire time, or there's people that come on later on. It's as time has progressed, but it's pretty neat when you think about a show that has literally had 48 episodes. I mean, that was produced between 73 and 76. And fast forward to literally like right now, I mean, it's been, since production started, it's literally 50 years that there's still a flame that's, burning for this show. There's so many things that are being done, so many different productions. I mean, in regards to everything. And it's just a very, it's a special time for Space 1999. And there's just so many aspects of it, whether it be, from the actors, from the model makers, for the, if you like the music, if you just like, have something that really, really connects you to the show or the friendships. It's you can almost do a study on it. And I really think, it's not Star Trek in the sense of that, as being as large, but in regards to volume. But I think the spirit of the folks that like it and enjoy it, and really it has held meaning, I think it's at that level. So, quantity doesn't always depend upon quality, and not that there's any quality measured. But my point is that I think that the enthusiasm that this show has endured over the period of 50 years really is right there with, other genres that exist. And that's really what is really, really special at the end of the day. And it's nice that, these events are being done, and, it's a way to celebrate and bring people together. So it's, just thought I'd share that.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I couldn't have said it better. It's the passion and loyalty of this small, close-knit group that has, I mean, if it weren't for that, we wouldn't be here 50 years later.
No.
Think about it. Right. So I mean, yeah, it's a true testament to the power of this fandom, and we are one big happy family. It is very, very much like you said it, and even Nick said it. I mean, it is about getting together with family and friends, and even I'll just use a brief example. My sister Heather, who came to Peterborough, and she was integral in Calgary. She is so disappointed because unfortunately Heather can't come, but she met so many people, and she's not even the hugest fan, but she's just met so many wonderful people at these events, and that really encapsulates it. It's you don't have to be a big fan, but you can be a fan of the people involved very easily, because everybody is just so likable and generous and giving on so many levels.
No, it's very, very well said, and that sums it up. I have to say, this is kind of I'm branching off. You were talking about the trivia contest, Brian. I've been going back, and Brian has a page that he does, Friends of Space 1999, and it's every now and then he's always posting little like episodes, and I'm always just saying about the episode. So I hit him with the trivia question the other day in regards to spacesuits, but he retaliated and he came back with how many times was the stun gun selector switched, used in an episode, or have they gone from stun to kill? Yeah. And I saw it, Brian. I haven't actually thought it out yet, but I'm going to work on that. But that's kind of like we're going to be doing trivia, so it'll be fun, and that's something that'll be fun at the convention. So,
well, I tell you what, and you mentioned earlier, I didn't realize Brian was in London. And Brian, if you're coming, maybe that's something that you and Roy can team up on to host the trivia Saturday night or something.
There you go.
I did see the one, because I did see you guys going back and forth, and it was about how many times did Alan Carter actually have a helmet on?
How many times did he have a helmet on, and how many times did he actually wear the life support system, the vest and the backpack when he was in the Eagle cockpit? How many times did he actually have it when he was sat? So that was the one question out there, and then I put on there when he was wearing the helmet. But then he brought up about the question about the stun gun, so I thought that was fun. Yeah, Brian just said fun to do, Roy. We'll be there. We'll be there. Cool.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's
cool.
awesome.
So anyway, just if you're a movie buff, one of the things that I like to do on the show is I've been, for anybody who's old enough to remember from back in the day, who remembers, at least in North America, Walter Cronkite. He would say at the end of the show, when he would do the news, he'd say that's the way it was. So anyway, right. Space 1999 release date, at least, well, in the UK, I believe it was September 4th of 1975, if I'm not mistaken. And actually here, when I actually first saw it, it was September 21st of 1975. It was on WPIX Channel 11. The top movies of September 1975 were The Rocky Horror Picture Show, Dog Day Afternoon, 3 Days of the Condor, and a documentary called Give 'Em Hell, Harry, about Harry Truman. So there's just a little nostalgia for you.
That's very cool. Can I add a little tidbit to that?
Yeah, sure.
As far as filming locations, we mentioned the Renaissance being used in a fish called Wanda, and somebody brought to my attention. She's been very helpful with all things. Her name is Adina over there. But apparently right next to Bray Studios, which we're going to visit, of course, there's a little hotel, or it looks like a converted house into a little hotel with a restaurant out front, right next to Bray. And this location was actually used as the mansion in the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, so there's the tie-in right there with that. That's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, the whole thing with the Renaissance and Fish Called Wanda, of course, is the connection with Charlie Crichton directing. It's just all these things have come together and fallen into place. It's really, really fun aspects.
Wow, that is pretty neat. That's actually really cool. And then one more thing I like to do on the show too is I always like to remember Starlog magazine, and I didn't actually get to do this. I was going to kind of remind Nick about this, but Starlog number 2. Back in the day, issue number 2, when Space 1999 was on the cover, and then issue number 4 had an interview with Nick that he did with Starlog back. So that's back from 1976. That's before we actually had the internet, folks. So that's why I always like to give Starlog a nod for those who remembered it. And Andrew is saying July 1975 is when 1999 premiered in Australia. Wow. So you got it 2 months earlier. That's pretty cool, Andrew. And looks like Robert saying Space 99 screen July 28, 75 for Australia, Channel 7 out of Melbourne. Wow.
Ah, I didn't know that. A couple months early, hey?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So with that, was there any other items that you wanted to cover?
No, I just, real quick on Starlog, and we have to just say hello and thank you to our friend David Hirsch. I mean, and down through
Oh
the
my
years,
God, David.
you know what? And thinking back on those days, and like you just nailed it. I mean, there was no internet, but it was David Hirsch was really the only person reporting on Space 1999 for several years, even after the show was done. Right? I mean, he really was key in keeping everybody in touch and attuned with all things Space 1999. So.
Well, he had the column that was called Space Report that was done that he did with Jerry Anderson, and it was, to your point. I mean, that was the fun. I mean, as much as I loved Starlog, but unfortunately, after Space, was canceled, you really couldn't find much information. It dried up. It dried up like a well drying up. There was nothing in it. There was no water, and he kept that going. And I remember Starlog magazine was a bi-monthly issue, so what would be a downer for me was if maybe that month he didn't have anything in the Space Report about 1999, and then it'd be like another 2 months I'd have to wait before any news was coming out. It was kind of a bummer, but yeah, he definitely was the source with that and the tech manual, the original, the first tech manual that came out. So
yeah,
definitely.
But it's funny. I was just talking to Dave earlier today, and I mean, thinking back on it, he probably did bridge that gap between the series cancellation and that first convention through the Space Report, because I remember that first convention being advertised in Starlog, and that's how
it was. And you're right. You're absolutely right. It was one of the earlier Starlogs issues that came out. Yeah. So anyway, just to let everybody know, just before we sign off, I think we covered everything. There is no show this coming week for folks, just so you know. That'll be this weekend, Friday, August 16th through the 18th. Taking the weekend off. So if you do tune into the show, Ross and I will not be back. However, Ross and I will be back on Friday, August 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So stay tuned. We'll have to announce what that will be. But just wanted to put that out there, and that's all we got for tonight. So again, thanks, Warren, for coming on.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, you're welcome. Absolutely. And thank you again to Silvana for being on earlier, and also, of course, thank you to Nick Tate. I mean, Nick, is always gracious with his time, and loves to talk Space 1999. He loves the fans, so it was time well spent, and 3 hours went very, very quickly. So it was it always does. But anyway, folks, until next time, as I always like to say, live long and prosper, even though we're talking about Space 1999. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.